Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Today is the last day of the 2023 League NFL season. Tomorrow, in 25 hours, we will welcome in the new league year, and then all these signings that we've been hearing about can become official. So, since we last departed yesterday, the Titans had agreed to terms with Tony Pollard, Lloyd Cushenberry, and Chidobe Awuzie. Then, late last night, as teams were continuing to sign players left and right, I really thought the Titans had packed it up and gone home for the evening. I felt like my vibe was that felt like they left the office at 7 o'clock last night and said, all right, we'll see everybody back in here 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. But I was wrong, because they went out and they signed Kenneth Murray, the linebacker, the former first-round pick, who was with the Chargers. Now, Pro Football Focus says he absolutely sucks. I mean, I have no idea if Pro Football Focus is right or wrong or whatever. But as far as the inside linebacker position was concerned, they had him ranked or as far as free agents were concerned, they had him ranked 217th. So I guess the Titans see something else in that. We'll get to all of those decisions and the moves the Titans haven't made, i.e. right tackle, right guard, the other corner spot, safety. We'll get to those. But the story today is yesterday the Titans made it obvious to everybody that they were moving on from Derrick Henry when they agreed to a deal with Tony Pollard. I think we all knew at that point in time they're not going to pay two running backs, especially after having drafted another running back in the third round. Today, a move that many Titan fans feared. Derrick Henry has signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, many Titans fans fear this because the reality of the fan base is that even though Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Houston are in the division, Baltimore, for a lot of us, myself included, is more hated than any of those three teams. And this goes all the way back to 2000, and I don't need to rehash what happened in 2000 or what happened in 2003 or what happened in 2005 when Derrick and Samari Rolle went there, and then 2006 when Steve McNair joined that team. And then, of course, 2008, the Titans were the 1 seed, got beat by the Ravens. 2019, the Titans went on the road to Baltimore, and they won, and they ended their dream season. And then the next year, Baltimore won here. Stomping on the logo, Vrabel versus Harbaugh. I mean, it's a whole new thing, and now Derrick Henry adds another chapter to that. So I want to start with this. First of all, when somebody makes up their mind that they're going to do something, regardless of what stands in the way or what logic there is that would say, I know that's what you think you should do, but are you sure this is what you want to do? Are you sure this is the path you want to go? They're going to do it anyway. And I think for both the Titans and for Derrick Henry, this was inevitable. It was inevitable that the Titans were going to want to move off of Derrick Henry because it was reported last year by Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk that it was Mike Vrabel who around the trade deadline said, I'm not trading Henry, we're not trading Hopkins. My gut tells me Rand Carthon probably wanted to trade everybody and was okay with losing, which is a whole nother problem in and of itself. But, again, Florio said Vrabel put his foot down on Henry and Hopkins. Well, Mike Vrabel's not here anymore. And so it was abundantly clear that the Tennessee Titans wanted to move in a different direction. This is a different era of Titan football. Tannehill's gone, Vrabel's gone, Robinson's gone, Byard's gone, A.J. Brown's gone, and now Derrick Henry's gone. So regardless of whether or not the Titans should have signed Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry's getting $9 million from Baltimore, and the Titans are giving Tony Pollard $8 million, though we still don't know the specifics of the Tony Pollard contract, which actually make me think that outside of that first year, it's very team-friendly, or else we would have heard the specifics of the Tony Pollard contract. The money was basically a wash. But Rand was going to move on anyway. It was obvious when they drafted Tajay Spears in the third round. They were going to move on. The other part of it is Derrick. Derrick When he said goodbye to the fans, I heard it, you heard it, we all heard it. That wasn't, oh, I just wanted to cover my bases just in case anything could happen. No, that was, fans, goodbye. This isn't like visiting Grandpa for the last time where maybe you'll see Grandpa again. No. Derrick was telling you goodbye. Then, after all of that, Derrick went on Bussin' with the Boys and basically said the same thing. Hey, things don't last forever. It's going to be what it is, and it's okay. And, guys, it's over. And so now it's official, and he joins the Baltimore Ravens. For Derrick Henry. And I'm not sure this is the best fit for the Baltimore Ravens. Look, the idea of Henry playing on the Ravens makes me sick. The only thing that might make me a little sicker is him playing for the Texans, only because I'd have to see him play the Titans twice a year, and even that's debatable, and I think I still may be sicker with him playing with the Ravens. But I don't totally understand what each side thinks they're getting out of this. When it comes to the Ravens, that offense is never going to run through Derrick Henry because that offense runs through Lamar Jackson. And so, as much as a big-time running back would appeal to the name value and the TV players, I like to call it, Henry and Jackson, and just like Odell last year, this offense isn't going to go through Derrick Henry. And I don't know if Derrick Henry can be successful in a program that doesn't call for the ball in his hands 20-plus times a game. Also, somebody pointed this out to me earlier today. The Ravens run out of shotgun and run their entire offense out of shotgun. Derrick Henry sucks out of the shotgun. So you're going to have Derrick next to Lamar, and Derrick is not going to be able to get that full head of steam to start taking off with the football. So when it comes to Derrick Henry, and I think the reason he's doing this is because they're paying him $9 million. He's going to a Super Bowl contender, and because he's trying to enhance the Hall of Fame resume. I don't think the touches are going to be there in Baltimore like they've been here in Tennessee. And I'm not sure the offensive system is going to fit Derrick Henry like it had here in Tennessee. I know Kirby Smart had brought over the Alabama program to Georgia, but Todd Monken, who calls the plays for the Ravens, with the Georgia Bulldogs as well, having won those 2 titles, it wasn't like Georgia pounded the football like Alabama used to back in the day with Derrick Henry. It's a different offense. So I'm not sure for Derrick this is the best fit. And then on the other side, well, I think it's great that, again, the Ravens, 4th and 1, who are you going to stop? I mean, they're going to have Lamar. They're going to have Derrick. They'll probably have somebody else. Like, I don't know how you stop them on 4th down. But this doesn't solve the Ravens' biggest problem. The Ravens' biggest problem is that if they get matched up in the playoffs against Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes, and they're trailing, they can't catch up. Andy Reid got a lead in the AFC title game and took the air out of the football. Why? Because he wanted to minimize the possessions and make Lamar Jackson throw the ball in hopes that Lamar Jackson would do something stupid, just like he did when he threw that interception in the second half that essentially ended the game. Well, if your biggest weakness is playing catch up, Derrick Henry doesn't help you. Derrick Henry is not going to help you down by 14 points in an AFC divisional game against Josh Allen. At that point, Derrick Henry goes to the bench. The biggest problem with the Ravens have already been the best front-running team in football for the last 4 years. You get a lead, you get behind on the Ravens, and they will grind you into submission. That's why Andy Reid in the AFC title game took the ball first, because they needed a lead and they needed Lamar to play from behind. So, I mean, it's great on paper. It's great for TV. Oh, Derrick and Lamar, and it's going to be. But I don't know if the Ravens play Derrick Henry style. And I don't know if Derrick Henry is what the Ravens really need. again, I don't keep up with the Ravens on a day-to-day basis. Neither do you. I don't know their cash spending. I don't know, how much Steve Bisciotti's willing to pay after all the money he paid last year in order to get the Lamar deal done. And then the Odell Beckham deal was part of the Lamar deal and everything else. So I can't keep up. They've lost a lot. John Simpson, their starting guard, went to the Jets yesterday. Patrick Queen, their inside backer, with Roquan Smith, went to the Steelers today. Geno Stone, their safety, went to Cincinnati. Now, they still have good players. Kyle Hamilton's a good player. Zay Flowers is a good player. Justin Matabike, who they re-signed, is a good player. And they'll still be good. But does Derrick Henry at $9 million a year for them, or $9 million this year, does Derrick Henry represent the difference between what got Baltimore right there towards the top and what can get them ahead of Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City in the playoffs? And I don't think the answer is yes. And I go back to that AFC title game in Kansas City when Derrick Henry ran well in that first half. And Andy Reid decided, we're taking the running game away from you. And they made Ryan Tannehill beat him, and they took the air out of the football. And Tannehill couldn't do it. I don't think Lamar can win that game either. Josh Allen can. Joe Burrow can. I assume if he's healthy, Aaron Rodgers can. If he takes the next step in his development, C.J. Stroud can. But I don't know if Lamar can. So, this is great. And this is what, again, if somebody wants to do something, they're going to do it. Rand didn't want Derrick Henry back. He wanted to trade him, according to Mike Florio. He wanted to trade him last year. So he wasn't going to bring Derrick Henry back, even though the money is basically the same. And Derrick didn't want to come back. Derrick didn't want to play for a new coach. Derrick didn't want to be on a team that's rebuilding. Derrick wanted to try to win a Super Bowl. And so Derrick wanted to go to the Ravens. If it wasn't, he probably wanted to go to the Ravens and the Cowboys. And he got one of his two choices. So I hope everybody's happy here. But I'm just not. Look, it could be scary, but I just don't think Derrick Henry helps the Ravens where they need to be helped. And I'm not sure the Ravens will play the style that Derrick Henry needs to be successful. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting. Again, the news of the day. Derrick Henry to the Ravens. It makes me sick, not because it doesn't just make me sick because I think it makes the Ravens a contender. It makes me sick because I hate the Ravens and because I love Derrick Henry. That's it. It's a total fan perspective as to why I don't like this. As far as what it does for the Ravens, again, they were already good at running the ball. They were already number one in the league. They were already good at putting you away when they had a lead. Not sure this helps them get over that hump. 615-737-1025. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. That's right. You should too. This month is Happy's Golden Ticket Sweepstakes at Hiller. Enter to win at HillerGoldenTicket.com. All you have to do is enter your email and you're automatically entered to win. Prizes include a $5,000 Hiller gift card, a $1,000 Hiller gift card, or one of 10 Happy Hiller Club memberships. I have a Happy Hiller Club membership. You will love being a member of the Happy Hiller Club. I can promise you that. Take advantage of zero-interest financing for 12 months on select new HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and whole home generators. And do not miss out. Enter to win now. Again, that's HillerGoldenTicket.com. Hiller, proud supporters of the Preds, Vols, and Vandy. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Derrick Henry is signing with the Baltimore Ravens. 2 years,
man.
$16 million, worth up to $20
Bingo.
per Adam Schefter.
Bingo, 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 bingo. What a marriage of talent and team. And 100% on brand for the Baltimore Ravens to bring Derrick Henry to Balmer and roll him downhill. What an absolute genius maneuver by Eric DeCosta. Honestly, certainly if we're going to sit here and wonder how you're going to get points on the board with receivers, we'll see what happens in the post-Odell world here. But Derrick Henry coming to Baltimore and taking any sort of pressure. Pick your poison. Who do you want running at you? Him or Lamar?
That was Rich Eisen today, as expected. Derrick Henry, when he signs with the Ravens, if it was the Ravens or the Cowboys, I knew, or the Chiefs, I knew that it was going to, the TV reaction was going to be, oh my God, yes, yes. And there it is from Rich Eisen. Again, who are you going to stop? Derrick or Lamar? And I'll just say this. There were two teams in the AFC Championship game last year that I thought could have used Derrick Henry's help a little bit. And the team that I think could have used his help more is Kansas City's. Now, you're going to say, well, Kansas City won the Super Bowl anyway, Jared. You're right. They did. And Pacheco's a solid running back. But I think about Pacheco and Derrick together, and I think about Kansas City being able to throw the football whenever they want down the field with Mahomes and everything else, and them taking the air out of the ball in the second half. And I'm thinking about how Kansas City, if they could just pound that rock with Derrick Henry, I mean, there really would be no stopping the Chiefs. Now, there may not be any stopping the Chiefs anyways, but there would be absolutely no stopping the Chiefs if they had a Derrick Henry. So I went to Pro Football Focus and I crunched the numbers because Gus Edwards got about, $3.5 million or something like that from the Chargers yesterday. Gus Edwards was no slouch as the lead runner with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens this past year. The Ravens in 2023 were already first in the NFL in rushing, and they were third in yards per attempt. So I pulled up their grades and their advanced analytics and whatnot, and I compared the two. And there is no doubt that Derrick Henry is a better player than Gus Edwards. But I do wonder this. Can Derrick Henry play Gus Edwards' role? Because there were games during the season where if the Ravens needed to hand the ball to Gus Edwards, they would, and he'd pound it. And then there were games where they didn't. Can Derrick Henry survive in an offense where some games he doesn't get the ball? Because, and I'm not talking about, will Derrick have a bad attitude? Because Derrick Henry will never have a bad attitude. But will it work when you're paying $9 million to Derrick Henry? I mean, I guess they lit $15 million on fire last year with Odell, but at least that accomplished the signing of Lamar Jackson. With Henry, this is the move the Ravens today are saying puts them over the top. This is the move that for all the naysaying with Lamar Jackson and with Derrick Henry, this is a Super Bowl move. And I'm not sure it gets the Ravens that much closer to the Super Bowl. Because I think that, again, the offense runs through Lamar, and Gus Edwards was good at being the number two guy. I don't know if Derrick Henry can be the number two guy. And I don't mean from a personality standpoint. I think Derrick will do whatever it takes to help the team. I'm talking about from being the second option in the offense. I'll never forget Nick Saban said on this station. He said, I don't know what it is about him, but the more he gets the ball, the better he plays. And now the Ravens are going to have to try to incorporate that, but every time you do that, you're taking the ball out of the league MVP's hands. And again, the reason that I think the Ravens can't win in the playoffs and they can't get over the hump is because Lamar cannot out-throw these great quarterbacks in the AFC, and I don't think Derrick Henry helps Lamar get closer to that. Not that A.J. Brown was available, but that's the kind of player that Lamar Jackson needs. That kind of player. Like the big-time wide receiver. Like maybe, now they would never trade inside the division. T. Higgins might be that kind of player. But again, that'll cost you a draft choice and $25 million a year, and Derrick's going to cost you $9 million this year. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Russ in Columbia, our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says Derrick Henry is a rat bird in all caps. It would be a very large, jagged pill to swallow if he wins a Super Bowl as a Raven. We would have to cheer with Raven fans at his Hall of Fame induction. And therefore, Russ in Columbia says, I'm done with Derrick Henry. I hope he wins it, but I'm, in all caps, done. Let me say this. I'm not going to root for the Ravens. I want the best for Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry will always be a Titan. And just like, Kevin Mawai is a Hall of Famer who played for the Titans, but he's not really a Titan. Derrick Henry, if he gets into the Hall of Fame, which Mad Dog Russo came on our show, and he said at the Super Bowl that Derrick's for sure a Hall of Famer. He'll always be a Titan. But I got to be real with you. Do you have to go to the Ravens? And this is like a theme, right? D. Mace did it. Samari Roll did it. Steve McNair did it. Now Derrick Henry's doing it. The two best players in the history of the Tennessee Titans, in my order, number 1, Derrick Henry, number 2, Steve McNair. And they both had to go to the freaking Ravens and retire Ravens. And I'm guessing Derrick's retiring a Raven. I mean, I think he probably has, if this year goes okay, 2 more years in him. If not, this might be it. Do you have to go to the Ravens? Oh, just killer. Just killer. All right, a lot of you want to weigh in on this at 615-737-1025, so that's what we're going to do. Again, Derrick Henry, officially a Baltimore Raven. Not the most surprising news, I would say. Again, when the Titans signed Tony Pollard, I was shocked, not because the Titans were moving off of Derrick Henry, but just because the Titans jumped out at the very, very beginning of free agency and signed a running back. I was like, whoa. When it came to Henry, and the news came out today that he signed with the Ravens, again, I wasn't shocked. We've been hearing about Derrick Henry and the Ravens for like the last 3 years. But at the same time, I was like, whoa, this is definitely, as the texter said, going to be a hard pill to swallow. I also was a little surprised at the money. I was a little surprised at $9 million. I truly was. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company. And then there is another element that the Titans are losing today. And I am serious about this. And we'll get to that coming up next because it is a real important element, and it's one that the analytic geeks can never, ever, ever figure out. Join 102.5, 106.3 The Game in Guinness this Friday for Pinewood Madness Patio SEC Watch Party. 102.5 The Game will be broadcasting live from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stop by and enter for your chance to win tickets to see Green Day. Showcase your skills in Pinewood Social's arcade basketball game competition, win tournament tickets, and to watch all the televised games on their jumbo LED screen. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
When it seemed Derrick Henry would be on the move from the Tennessee Titans, when teams thought Derrick Henry would be on the move from the Tennessee Titans, it was always the Ravens who had him in their sights. It was really just a matter of waiting until he got free, waiting until he was ready to move on from the Titans, which certainly he did, saying a very nice goodbye at the end of the season and waiting for the Ravens to pounce. And that's exactly what they did. They had the strongest offer, it seemed, for Derrick Henry all the way throughout. Up their offer early this morning. Two sides got together. It is a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million, $9 million guaranteed for Derrick Henry. Really nice deal for an older running back. And, the fact that the Ravens get the sort of ground and pound superstar, big name running back to help in their offense, something no doubt that Baltimore, who really has sat out a lot of free agency, certainly something Baltimore can celebrate.
Okay. So that was Ian Rappaport today saying, hey, Baltimore, they have wanted Derrick Henry, and they have sat out a lot of free agency. Geno Stone's gone. Patrick Queen's gone. John Simpson is gone. Gus Edwards is gone. But it's okay. They got their guy, Derrick Henry. Now, there is one element to this. A texter into the text line says, asked the question about Chidobe Awuzie, saying, Jared, what did you think of the Mike Garafolo report that Chidobe Awuzie wanted to come to the Titans to help set the culture? How would a guy like Mike Garafolo have any idea what kind of culture the Titans are trying to set? Is that clickbait, or do you think he has an inside source who actually said this? Here's what I am worried about when it comes to Derrick Henry, and this has nothing to do with Chidobe Awuzie, who I've never met. The Titans are losing their biggest locker room leader. They are. The Titans social media did a video where they went around to everybody and they asked what they ate every morning. And, some of the stuff's outrageous with some of these defensive linemen that are like, I eat 8 eggs and 4 pancakes and an entire bowl of blueberries every morning. And it's like, how? But with Derrick, they went to him and he was like, oh, I get 2 waters, I get an avocado, I get a bowl of spinach, and and it's like, yep, Derrick Henry, unlike you and I, that sits there and we're like, oh, yes, French fries. Derrick Henry is like, those French fries aren't going to help me run the football. That's how he is. And he's a lead by example guy. And I asked Brian Callahan when he took the job, I said, how important is the leadership element of Derrick Henry? And he said it's a big deal. And he brought up the fact that when he got to Cincinnati, Andrew Whitworth had left after all those years in Cincinnati and had gone to L.A., and that it was a big leadership void that they even talked about when he got there of, we don't have Andrew Whitworth here anymore. And so Awuzie, I guess I'm sure he's a good locker room guy, or else Brian Callahan wouldn't have brought him with him from the Bengals. But they have a humongous leadership void that needs to be filled. And Will Levis, at 24 years old, is not ready to be that leader. Now, he could develop into it, and maybe by the end of the year he could be that kind of guy. But Tom Brady wasn't the leader of that team his second year in the league. In fact, in the Super Bowl, the first one that Brady won his second year in the league, Brady was so hyped up in the tunnel that Willie McGinnis had to put him up against the wall and say, Tom, you have to calm down. Willie McGinnis was the leader of that team. So this team does have a leadership void now that I don't exactly know how they plan to fix it. I really don't. One texter says, I hate the Ravens and any player with that ugly uniform on. Apparently, Derrick Henry didn't want to win a title after all. Screw off Derrick Henry and the rest of that trash franchise. Boy, some Titans fans, I think, are not taking this very, very well. As far as Henry's concerned to the Chargers. Ravens. Let me say this about Derrick Henry and the Ravens. I love Derrick Henry. I do. I think Derrick Henry, and I know I've pissed Derrick Henry off times over the years. That doesn't bother me. I have an immense amount of respect for Derrick Henry. I was the guy who was pounding the table and saying, let the big dog eat when Matt LaFleur stuck him on the bench behind Deion Lewis and David Fluellen. And while the Joe Rexroads of the world were, well, this is what happens when you don't play well. They're going to put you on the bench. I was like, no. They're not using him right. And then 99 yards against Jacksonville and 238 and 4 touchdowns. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, they're actually, he's pretty good. And I was yelling, let the big dog eat. I hope for the best with Derrick Henry. I'm not rooting for the Ravens. That will not happen. Like when the Texans were playing the Ravens in the playoff game, I was rooting for the Texans. And I don't like the Texans either. Now, I don't hate the Texans like the Titans ownership hates the Texans because I'm not from Houston. And the city of Houston didn't stick their middle finger in my face the way that they did for them. But I hate the Ravens. I don't necessarily hate the Colts as a fan. I just think it's absurd that anytime the Colts make a move, the national media is like, oh, what a great decision by Chris Ballard and the Colts. You know the Colts. Like the Colts just re-signed Kenny Moore to a 3-year, $30 million contract. Kenny Moore sucks. Like when I went over the numbers, I'm like, this guy's terrible. I mean, they complete every pass on him. He sucks. But I'm sure they'll say it was a great signing. I'm sure they'll say, oh, Indy, oh, it's so great. But I don't want Indy or Jacksonville to win championships. But I hate the Ravens. One texter says, dude, let's talk about the Titans, not Baltimore. Buddy, this is the most popular player in the history of the Tennessee Titans. And if every prognostication is right, which you know how I feel, 2 years ago, Jacksonville was picking number 1. They made the playoffs. They ended up in the division round of the playoffs. And they won the division and ended up in the division round of the playoffs. So I'm not counting out anything for next year. And if that young quarterback pops, then you've got a chance to be pretty good and a good chance to be good for a while. So I'm not ruling anything out. But if the prognostications are right and the Titans aren't going to be very good next year, that's going to be a big storyline around town. Is Derrick Henry with the Ravens? Are they doing well? Are they doing poorly? You know, again, there are teams every year that are considered surefire contenders that go out and don't play very well. This year, I think the best example of that was what? The Jets? Cincinnati got hurt, so I don't count them. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, were there any flops in the NFC where there were teams that were supposed to be really, really good and they were just... The Eagles at the end of the year. But you see what I'm saying. Brian in Spring Hill says the quarterback market keeps getting smaller. What do you think about Ryan Tannehill? I think there's a chance Ryan Tannehill retires. And I don't know anything about his frame of mind or his desire to play more or anything else. I just know this. Ryan Tannehill has made a fortune playing quarterback in the NFL. He is probably looking at a 1-year, $8 million contract to be a backup in a spot where there will be a starting quarterback, and he will not have an opportunity to take that job from that quarterback unless that quarterback gets hurt or fails. And while I know he did that 5 years ago when he came here and he took the reduced salary and he sat behind Mariota and he was very clearly the backup, I want to say he was still in his 20s at that point, like his late 20s. He still had a lot of ball in him. Like he still had a lot of time. Now he's made $100 million since then. And is the idea of learning a new system or going to OTAs or training camp, sitting on the bench, spending all the time in the meetings, is that worth it to him? Or would he rather go back down to Florida and ride the boat all day? And as somebody who loves riding on the boat, and I don't have the kind of boat he has. I have a boat club membership. He has a boat. I mean, he's got a freaking, I think it might be a whaler. Like, he's got a freaking boat. I could see him retiring because I don't see, like, I thought the Steelers were the perfect fit for him. And if I was Arthur Smith, I'd have been banging the table to not sign Russell Wilson because I think Tannehill's better than Russell Wilson at this point. But I don't know where he's going to go. Minnesota went with Sam Darnold, which, by the way, is a move that I like. You know where I go? Well, I'm trying to think. What would be a good fit for Tannehill? Anything pop off the top of your head?
No, not really. Nothing really stands out. The
what
Rams?
About Denver.
Maybe. Peyton, he fit that?
I mean, they're not going to go with Jarrett Stidham as their quarterback, are they?
I would hope not. I mean, I guess, I don't know. You think he could be a starter somewhere?
I don't think anybody will view him as a starter, but I definitely think that he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
But he'd have to go somewhere and probably sit on the bench and go from there. 615-737-1025. One defender the Titans have signed. The numbers are not pretty on. Another defender the Titans are bringing in. I do want to get to that, and then, of course, we're back to your phones. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Let's start with Kenneth Murray Jr. It was news that came out late last night. D-Mace, what were your thoughts on that signing?
I think it's a good signing. They filled, at this point, they filled a piece of need, at that position. So signing him was good. It's not one of these knock it out the ballpark signings, but it is a signing that, gives them strength at that position. So I think it was a good signing. Again, it's not oh my goodness, they signed him. Great. Yeah, let's go. No, it's a signing that says, okay, it's a good player. Hopefully he can continue to play at a level that's going to be sufficient for us.
That was Derrick earlier today on the Midday Show saying, hey, this is a good signing right here. Pro Football Focus doesn't think so. Holy crap, do they think this Kenneth Murray II sucks? They think he sucks. His grades over the last 3 years. Ian, have you seen this?
I have not.
And look, Pro Football Focus isn't the end-all, be-all of this kind of stuff, but it's either this or actually watch the Charger games. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not interested in watching all these Charger games because the Chargers are incredibly terrible, and that would just be a lot of eyeball prying. Pro Football Focus gave him a grade last year of 59.2. 59 point, no, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is my dyslexia there. 52.9. The year before that, 47.8. 2021, 34.0. Pro Football Focus says this guy sucks. On their free agent rankings, he ranks as the 213th free agent. 213. Here are the linebackers that they rank ahead of him. Patrick Queen, Frankie Louvu, Levante David, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Jerome Baker, Azeez Al-Shaair, Devin White, Josie Jewell, Blake Cashman, Drew Tranquill, Jordan Hicks, Willie Gay, Tyrell Dotson, Oren Burks, Nicholas Morrow, Cody Barton, who the hell's that? Zach Cunningham, Sion Takitaki, Anthony Walker Jr., Shaquille Leonard, Denzel Perriman, Isaiah Simmons, and then finally, Kenneth Murray Jr. They say he stinks. Now, I have no idea if he stinks or if he doesn't stink. I have no clue. I will say this, though. The Titans better know something that everybody else doesn't because they're paying him real money now. Like they gave him, and again, we haven't seen the actual contract, but it's probably whatever the annual value of the contract is, that probably is what they're getting in the first year, if not a little bit more. And so if the average is $9 million, he's probably getting like $10 million guaranteed or something like that. What was it, up to? It was up to something, but whatever. They say he stinks. And so the Titans better be right on this because the last thing I'm going to do is accept the same lame excuses that I accepted last year. Oh, Jared, what was Rand supposed to do? How could he actually? He could sign a real inside linebacker. Now, I crunched the numbers between him and Azeez because Azeez signed for $11 million again per year. That's not really, the average value stuff that we talk about. $11 million a season. That's never really what happens. Neither the $238 million contract. He's not going to see all that money. $49 million over 3 years. He's not going to see $49 million. But it sounds good. But again, Azeez signed for some straight-up cash with the Texans. And I can't stand Azeez. And Azeez had a higher grading than Murray. Now, Murray played one less game than Azeez did, and he had 84 tackles. Azeez had 108. Murray had 11 missed tackles, and it was about 9% of his tackles were missed. Azeez had 22, which was 12.3. And Azeez's missed tackles drove me crazy, by the way. 46 stops for Murray, 56 stops for Azeez, and then Azeez played about 200 more snaps than Kenneth Murray did. So I will say I like the fact that Kenneth Murray is bigger than Azeez because he's 241 pounds at 6'2". Azeez is 228 at 6'2". But they still need another inside linebacker and preferably somebody who's better than Kenneth Murray. But if Kenneth Murray is as bad as they say he is, and that's your day one signing, we got problems. But if Pro Football Focus is wrong, which they might be, if Pro Football Focus is wrong and Rand and his crew, they watched the tape and they found a good inside backer, then I think you'll be better than you were last year because I'm not a fan of Azeez Al-Shaair. And, I mean, the Texans, they seem to be doing something right because they turned their team around. And I love the Danico Autry signing for them. But Azeez, I am not going to miss Azeez. I think he was an average replacement level linebacker. I don't think he was a good player, but I don't think he was a bad player. He was always a day late and a dollar short, and it used to drive me crazy. Now, there is a report, I believe it was Tom Pelissero maybe that had this report, that the Titans are going to be bringing in Chase Young, the former number 2 overall draft choice. That they're going to bring in Chase Young for a visit, and I think he's set to visit the Saints and Panthers.
Panthers, I think.
Yeah. So, I don't know Chase Young, and I know he's got all the talent in the world. That's why he went number 2, and he was the kind of player that they were saying, if anybody but Joe Burrow were going to be the number 1 pick, then Chase Young might be like a number 1 overall pick caliber player. And he had a good rookie year in Washington, then he got hurt and he completely fell off. The word on the street is that Chase Young doesn't play hard. And when Chase Young is not wanted anymore by Washington and goes to San Francisco, and San Francisco doesn't make any effort to retain him, and his entire reputation across the league is so bad that he has to go on visits in order for somebody to sign him because they have to determine whether or not this guy actually likes football, that to me, outside looking in, is a problem. The GM used to always say there's only one of 4 reasons why somebody's available. Bad player, bad guy, too much money, injured. In the case of Chase Young, through 4 years or 5 years or whatever it's been in his career, he has not been a great player in the NFL. He was supposed to be, and he hasn't been it. There are questions about his character, about does he love football? If you pay him, will he play hard for this football team? And again, this is a Titan team that just lost Derrick Henry. And so when it comes to locker room and who you can bring in and your culture, that's important. Money. He's going to want to get paid. And so he's not taking a bargain contract here. So if you sign him, I mean, you're making a commitment. And then finally, injury, he has been injured. And I remember how much you guys went crazy about Vic Beasley. And Vic Beasley's lack of love for football was a big problem because he had talent. Chase Young, I'm skeptical of. Now, again, he's reportedly coming in for a visit. And that's where I would guess that they would decide doing these things. You know, is he right for us? Is he not? But again, I'm skeptical based upon the reputation that he has. 615-737-1025. Add all this to the list. At 615-737-1025. By the way, Adam in Portland says, name the team captains for next year. Other than Jeffrey Simmons, who else? That's a really good question. DeAndre? Off the top of my head, how many team captains, Ian? 5?
Maybe, is there 5? I thought there was 3. One per. I don't know the rules.
Because it was like Henry and Tannehill. And so I'm going to say 5. 2 on offense, 2 on defense, and 1 on special teams or whatever.
Okay, that seems fair.
Okay, so Morgan Cox is going to be the special teams captain. They re-signed him. That's his thing. So put him to the side. Simmons. Landry.
Yeah, good choice.
Or Hooker.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure I'll go Landry. Simmons, Landry, Hopkins.
No Levis yet?
I mean, I guess you could. I mean, everybody's team captain if
Is
they're
the
the quarterback. There was one quarterback this past year that was the only quarterback who wasn't named team captain. I can't remember who that was, but they made a big deal about that on TV. Was it Kyler?
I don't remember that.
I can't remember. There was one quarterback that wasn't named team captain, and they made a big deal about that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Boy, there was a section of this Titan fan base that was ready to party last night. And I got to tell you, I don't get it. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So the Titans in free agency have signed Chidobe Awuzie, Lloyd Cushenberry, two signings that had to happen. They had to get a corner. They not only had to get a corner, but they also had to get a center. They also signed Kenneth Murray, an inside backer. And then, of course, we all know that they signed Tony Pollard from the Cowboys, which they didn't have to sign a running back right away, but they were going to need a guy to go with Tajay Spears. That's fine. So yesterday, I was on Twitter, and Ian, I could not help myself. And I do not think a majority of Titan fans feel this way. I think a majority of Titan fans are very measured, reasonable, and have fair expectations. But then there's the Titans Twitter audience, the boo-hoo crowd. And they could not yesterday, I could not say anything without them being like, you hate Rand Carthon, just admit it. Zach Lyons, good man, the football and other F Words podcast. He put out a little GIF or whatever it is on Twitter and said, I'm just sitting here today thinking about the people that called Rand Carthon incompetent. Ian, who's he talking about?
I guess you.
That's probably aimed at me. And I'm just sitting here. I just got to say one thing. I'm not happy with what the Titans have accomplished so far because they need to do more. Now, I don't think there's any reason to sit here and give a grade on what the Titans have done yet because we don't know what moves are coming down the pipe and what moves, what positions are they saying, hey, we can wait this out a couple of weeks, and then as we start to get into the draft prep, these guys' agents are going to come to them and say, hey, man, you need to take that $3 million deal because it may not be there after the draft. I am totally open to that. I've said from the beginning, I'm not impressed by Rand so far throughout the first year and a half of his tenure. I have not been impressed. I'm not overly impressed by free agency so far yet, but I'm not anti-Rand Carthon. But what I am is I just cannot handle the Titan fans that do not live in reality, that want to throw a celebration for what they've accomplished in free agency so far when the Titans don't have a starting tackle. Like we sit here today at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, March 12th, and the Titans do not have a left tackle, and the Titans do not have a right tackle. And I'm supposed to be told, hey, Jared, you got to criticize Rand Carthon all the time. I'm not criticizing Rand Carthon. I'm criticizing you for your unbridled defense and your, just unwillingness to actually look at your football team and say, yeah, we got to get on this right now because there are names that are just flying off the board like crazy. Every hour there's about 2 names that come off the board, and a lot of them are at positions where you need. And right now you still need a left tackle, a right guard, a right tackle, a defensive lineman, a defensive end, an inside linebacker, a safety, a kicker, and another corner. And you still need all of those things with 2 picks in the top 100. And so I don't have a problem with the Tony Pollard signing. I don't think that it's earth-shattering. I think Pollard is going to be a good running back, and I think he's going to be the main runner of the ball for this team and will be a good complement to Spears. I think the Cushenberry thing, they had to do it, and they did. Good for them. Awuzie, I think, is a solid starting corner, and you'll never have to worry about the crap you had to worry about when it came to Christian Fulton out there. You'll never have to worry about that from Chidobe Awuzie. He's not going to make every play. He doesn't intercept the ball, but you're not going to have to worry about the bad stuff, and it's going to be like when Logan Ryan was signed by the Titans. Just sit, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have a tackle. You don't have a right tackle. You don't have a left tackle. You don't have a right guard. Right now, if the season started today, and I know it doesn't, but if it did, you're starting Roger McCreary, Chidobe Awuzie, and Trey Avery at corner. That good? You have 1 safety. And I see these Titan fans, like I'm seeing guys go off the board that are not, high-priced guys. I see them going off the board for prices that I'm like, where are the Titans? Like every 30 minutes last night, the Houston Texans signed somebody else. And they weren't all great players, but they were signing some solid players. And I'm looking at the Titans. I'm like, when do you guys plan on getting off your ass and signing some of these players so that you have a tackle? Jermaine Illuminor went for 2 years and $14 million. You couldn't pay for that? He's a starting tackle in the NFL, and you couldn't pay for that. So again, I have no idea. And Kenneth Murray's, I think, a great example of this. I have no idea if Kenneth Murray's going to be good or not. What I'm not going to do is assume that he's going to be good, and I'm not going to assume that he's going to be bad. And that's what I'm doing with this. I did tell everybody, including the Titans, I said, look, I will give Rand Carthon, after that disastrous end of the season press conference, that while on one hand you can argue, well, it wasn't his fault, he didn't fire Vrabel, and they put him out there, he could have done better than injuries were the problem with the offensive line, and the ball didn't bounce our way. That was a disastrous press conference. But I told everybody, including you, I said, I'm going to give this guy another chance. We'll see. We'll see. He went to the combine, did an interview there, I thought was good. Went on chasing Big Joe, I thought was good. Seemed like he was informative, but he didn't really tell you anything, which I like. But now we're in free agency, and I got Titan fans that everything this guy does, he farts, you guys think it's perfume. I'm like, you don't have a tackle, and then I'm the bad guy. That's the part I don't like, Ian. I'm the bad guy for pointing out that you don't have a tackle. Do I have to tell the right tackle story again?
Please no.
Do I have to tell it? Because right now you don't have a right tackle or a left tackle.
They have Dillard.
You don't have a right tackle or a left tackle. I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. I saw somebody tweet out yesterday that was like, we got a new coach and a new GM. I'm like, you don't have a new GM. This guy was GM last year. And I'm the bad guy for pointing that out. Like the Derrick Henry thing, right? If this were an agenda-based show, right, like the Sean Hannity program, where there is an agenda on that program, if there was an agenda on this show, I could easily, because everybody thinks I manufacture opinions this is just how I feel. I don't like not having tackles. But if this was a show where I wanted to go out of my way to, pit the fans against the GM, I could get up there and say, $8 million for Tony Pollard when Derrick Henry only cost $9 million. What are they thinking? But I don't have a problem with that because I understand the logic on both sides. But what I don't understand is I don't understand all of this celebrating because they signed a running back, a center, and a corner, and an inside backer who might stink. Like we're not celebrating around here. The Titans trade for Joe Burrow, we'll celebrate. But this idea that I bet you've learned now, Jared. Haven't you seen it right here? Rand Carthon, he's cooking, Jared. Can he cook me a tackle? Because right now I don't have a tackle. And then I'm the bad guy. And so I refuse to be the bad guy anymore. I call it how I see it. And right now, so far in free agency, I like the center. I'm fine with the corner. It wasn't my favorite corner, but I like the corner. I still think they need another corner. Don't have a problem with the running back. The inside linebackers a little skeptical on. But I need a tackle. I need a right guard. I need players on the offensive line. Unless he really thought that injuries were the problem last year on the line. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get to your phones on this. Plus, there is one major common misconception that Titan fans are starting to have surrounding their offensive line. We'll do that next because, other than drafting one of these left tackles, which I think they're going to have to do, what's the answer? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I will say that there is some young talent on our line that I do like. I think Jalen Duncan did some good things. I think Petit Frere has talent. I mean, I think we got some guys that have traits that just need to be refined and coached, and hopefully we got more in those spots as well. So I'm not saying that that's where we're going to stop, but we're going to keep trying to add good players. But I think there's some things to work with on the roster as well.
Okay, there you go. That was Brian Callahan at the Combine on Caroline, Willie, and D. Mace. And he was like, well, I think we got some guys that we can work with. I mean, we're still going to look. But where I sit right now, the Titans have a center, Lloyd Cushenberry, and a left guard, Peter Skoronski. They don't have a left tackle. They don't have a right tackle. And they don't have a right guard. And if you wanted to tell me that Brunskill could play right guard again, like, I think he kind of sucks, but that's fine, whatever. It's one guard spot. That's okay. Last night, I kept going crazy about the idea, and it was what I went crazy about in the last segment, the idea that, the Titans are doing great so far in the offseason. They don't have a tackle. They don't have a right tackle. They don't have a left tackle. And Titan fans were tweeting me about, like, that's okay, Jared. We'll draft our left tackle, and we'll just put Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle. Or we'll just put Dylan Radins at right tackle. Or we could get, Bill Callahan is so great that we'll get one of these guys in there. You don't have to worry about a thing, Jared. And I'm like, oh, dear God. I'm like, have you people watched the Titan football for the last 3 years? Do you know what got the Titans in this mess in the first place? The constant belief that, we'll just put this Scarbini in there and it won't matter. I think one of the things of the many bad decisions down the stretch that John Robinson made that really got him fired was when he cut Roger Saffold and didn't replace him, so he stuck Aaron Brewer in there, who we know sucks. By the way, woo! I know not to do the average value stuff of a contract because it's all inflated for the agent. How stupid are the Dolphins? Aaron Brewer. That gets me sidetracked on here. But Robinson put Aaron Brewer at left tackle, and then David Quessenberry, who was a backup, had played right tackle in the 2021 season, and they got away with it. And they had drafted Dylan Radins in the second round, and they were like, well, we'll develop Dylan, and he'll be ready to go. And they didn't have an insurance option there. So then when they got to training camp and they realized he stunk, they put Nicholas Petit-Frere in there, and guess what? He stunk. And Jalen Duncan last year, when they tried out Andre Dillard because, he was a first-round pick, they tried out Dillard. I knew after the first 3 days of training camp this guy was terrible. And Vrabel kept defending it, kept him out there. He was terrible. They singled him up with Myles Garrett. I mean, I don't know why they thought that was going to work, but they did. And then ultimately they benched him for Jalen Duncan. And he was terrible. And Titan fans are now convinced because the free agent market at right tackle, since Jermaine Illuminor's come off the board, and Michael Onwenu has re-signed with the Patriots, Titans Twitter has decided that Bill Callahan is a miracle worker who can take the same guys who have stunk for the last 2 years and turn them into solid starting players in the NFL. And I am here to tell you that is not an acceptable option. It is not acceptable if they get out there week one and Dylan Radins is the starting right tackle of the Tennessee Titans. It is not acceptable because he's not good. It is not acceptable if Nicholas Petit-Frere, we can just stick him out there. Last year, Nicholas Petit-Frere played 117 snaps and gave up 3 sacks. The average offense that I've learned plays about over the course of 17 games, 1,100 snaps. So let's say that instead of 117, Nicholas Petit-Frere, again, gave up 3 sacks. Let's say he plays 1,100 snaps. Do you realize how many sacks that is? Ian, you have any idea?
It's about 10 times almost, huh?
28. 28 sacks. Jalen Duncan last year, 9 sacks on 364 snaps. Let's do the same thing with him. let's just go ahead and see what that would be over the course. 27 sacks. George Fant, meanwhile, who you were too cheap to sign last year and went to the Texans, George Fant played 915 snaps last year and gave up 3 sacks. I went crazy on Jason Hodling, and I thought he was a bum, and Vrabel promoting him and saying, oh, this is the best interview I've done over the years was ridiculous. But you can't keep putting out the bad players and expect good results. And so I'm not here to yell at the Titans right now because I don't know if the Titans have a trick up their sleeve that they're going to sign this guy because they know he'll be good, or they're going to draft, this guy in the first round and then turn around and trade and get somebody. I mean, I don't know if they've got an idea what they're going to do with the 2 tackle spots. Because right now, there's just not enough out there in free agency to make me feel comfortable whatsoever about signing these guys and saying, okay, you're the right tackle. But I'm more comfortable with that than I am with the guys that they've had. And when Brian Callahan tells Caroline, hey, Jalen Duncan and Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
And PT, they've done some nice things. They've got some talent. That worries me. Because I think there's something about the offseason. I think it's a comfort thing, right? Where fans decide to tell themselves that, oh, this guy could do it. And it makes them feel better because there's not a game on Sunday, so there's nothing that can come up that would make them think, well, we definitely can't do that because we're playing Jacksonville and they've got Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, although Walker kind of hadn't really been that good. But they've got Josh Allen, and if we stick Nicholas Petit-Frere out there, he's going to give up 5 sacks this game. Like, there is something where during the offseason you talk yourself into these poor decisions. It reminds me of the 2022 training camp when I watch Malik Willis every day. And I said at the time, Malik Willis sucks right now. And everybody got mad. Oh, my God. The fans got mad. The local scribes got mad. I mean, they were like, you don't understand. He's a rookie, Jared. I'm like, he threw the ball away on 4th down of a 2-minute drill. I've never seen that before. And then he got into the preseason games, and he was horrible. And the Titans still were like, oh, no, he's going to be our backup quarterback. And I thought, what? But everybody had talked themselves into that being a viable option because it probably made themselves feel better. What's the answer? Oh, the answer's right here. Great. But it's not so much fun on Sunday Night Football when you're this close to beating the Chiefs and you can't because your quarterback sucks. Well, that's the same with this offensive line. That's why I refuse to fall for the narratives of, oh, let's see what Treylon Burks can do under Brian Callahan. Or, oh, Chigakonkwo caught the ball a little bit better at the end of last year. Those guys are starters. I don't get into that. Because to me, that's just an excuse to make you feel better about your team when you're ignoring reality and the more likely than not pitfalls that come with, I think we can put this guy in there. Is there any data that makes you think that guy can do that job? Nope. But I think we can do it. Titan fans, it is not an acceptable option here are the options that are not acceptable as far as the offensive line is concerned and the offensive tackle position. 1, expecting to be able to draft somebody in the second round that could come in and play right away. You do not draft second rounders at tackle that are ready to play right away. Everybody who's ready to play right away, especially at right tackle, especially at left tackle, goes within about the first 17 picks of a draft. Now, there are times where you've seen a guy drafted in the 3rd round and he plays and he's good. That's the exception, not the rule. So stop banking on that. And if they're banking on that, they're stupid. The second thing, Radence, Petit-Frere, and Duncan, they are not options to start. I wouldn't cut any of them. And look, if you get into week 8 and you've got 2 torn ACLs and they have to get, that's fine. Like, that's the NFL. I get it. Not every position's a starter because of injuries. But as far as going into the season with those guys as your starters, no. Not an option. And then the third thing that I think, again, we have to remember with all of this that is incredibly important when it comes to the offensive line and the guys the Titans are bringing in. Just because Bill Callahan has a great reputation does not mean that Bill Callahan is Jesus and can turn water into wine. Let's just be real, okay? Like when Bill Callahan got to the Cleveland Browns with Kevin Stefanski, you know what they did when they didn't have any tackles? They signed Jack Conklin and they drafted Jedrick Wills in the first round. But they had Bill Callahan. He could take Jalen Duncan and turn him into. I don't think that Bill Callahan could take somebody who's on pace to give up 27 sacks in a season and turn them into a legitimate starter in the NFL. Again, Jermaine Illuminor signed for $7 million a year. That's not a lot of money. That's the same money Aaron Brewer just signed for. And he gave up 5 sacks all of last year. Duncan played less than half the season, and he gave up 9. Come on now. 615-737-1025. We'll take your phones next. 615-737-1025 here on the program. And I am not happy. I will say this, I'm worried about this tackle spot. And I do see all your phones, so we'll just hit them when we return here. Twice Daily. You know I love Twice Daily. Twice Daily has all your cravings. Try their new wraps like the Italian, the ham and cheddar, the turkey and Swiss, and the Nashville hot chicken. They're made to order with your favorite toppings, and you can download the Twice Daily app to order ahead. And they've got snacks. At Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time, and they've got favorites like chicken fingers, tater rounds, and they've got brand new pretzels. Salted, garlic parmesan, cinnamon sugar, you name it, they've got it. And you can go right to their made-to-order kiosk, punch it in, and boom, you've got it from Twice Daily. Download the Twice Daily app and join their loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily where you earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily, made-to-order sandwiches, bakery, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You name it, they've got it. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day. I'm going to tell you a story. And everybody listening probably knows this story. Robbie knows this story. But years and years ago, when I first started at the radio station, we had the old general manager of the Titans, Floyd Reese, name on the wall over there. Mm-hmm. He was working there, and we ended up working together for about 5 years. But before we were working together, I had just met the guy. And I grew up a huge Titans fan, and so it's like, this is Floyd Reese. So we're doing our first show together, and I'm just trying to, break the ice because I don't even know him. So I said, this was 2015. The team was terrible. They were 3-13 that year. I go, Floyd, are the Titans going to be any good this year? This might have been April after the draft. And he looked at me and he goes, we don't have a right tackle. I said, that's important, huh? He said, right tackle? I was like, it's pretty important. So the last couple of years, I feel like I've had to tell that story on the radio a bunch. So right tackle's apparently pretty important. I just, I just want you to know that story so I don't have to tell it anymore on the radio.
I'll say this. Anymore, the way the NFL's set up, everybody's usually has at least one dynamic pass rusher. Mm-hmm. Most of them have two. And so if you don't have two tackles, it's going to be hard.
Okay. I'm not telling this story anymore, Brian. It was funny the day you got hired. It's not funny anymore. As we look at the tackles, I promised phones, but a couple people on Twitter, this is my favorite. This one guy says, just an FYI, Jared Stillman. According to Pro Football Focus, George Fant graded at 63.5, but Dylan Radins graded at 67.2. At Jared Stillman, do some more research. Radins isn't great, but he has improved and could become a top 20 right tackle, in my opinion. Top 20 right tackle. Holy crap. By the way, to the do more research, I literally sent him a picture of my notes. If you're looking at the stream, I'm putting them in front of there right there. Of my notes where I have Radins, Jonah Williams, George Fant, and Nicholas Petit-Ferrer when he played right tackle in 2022. Their grades, their right tackle snaps, their sacks allowed, sacks per 1,000 snaps, penalties, and penalties per 1,000 snaps. And guess what? Last year, George Fant committed 3.2 penalties per 1,000 snaps. Dylan Radins committed 12. 12. Last year, George Fant allowed 3.2 sacks per 1,000. Dylan Radins allowed 6. Do more research. I had somebody say to me, that I've known for forever last week. They were like, man, how do you know the things you know? I'm like, this is my job. And the person I was talking to was a neurosurgeon. And I was like, just like all the things that you've known over the years about neurology and neurosurgery and everything else, that's what I wake up at 8 a.m. and I look up people's contracts. Tell me I need to do more research. Come on now. Text 615-737-1025. So somebody actually tweeted me this, and I have all your texts to get to, but I do want to, I just seen some of these tweets and said, if the Titans can get Malik Neighbors, I'm fine with Tyron Smith. And yesterday I had a lot of people that were saying to me, what about Tyron Smith, Jared? Tyron Smith graded very highly, according to Pro Football Focus last year. And Tyron Smith's a former All-Pro, and Tyron Smith played that 1 year for Bill Callahan. Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015. So when you guys say, well, what about a 1 year deal worth $7 million and you can put incentives for games played, and if he doesn't play, then you're back into the same problem that you were last year, which is Jalen Duncan is at left tackle. That's the same problem that you had. He played 13 games last year, Tyron Smith did, which means 4 games. Jalen Duncan is playing left tackle. 4 games, you're going to lose. He played 4 games in 2022. Somebody asked me and goes, what's the risk in a low contract and just a 1 year, prove it, see what happens? You get Levis killed. That's the risk. There's an old saying, dumb guys stay dumb, fat guys stay fat, and injured guys stay injured. It's the same reason why I'm not interested in lazy Mekhi Becton, who's missed 2 seasons of his 4 with injuries. Why? Because he's fat, dumb, and injured. You don't always have to go for the dented can. You have to go get good players. That's the point. One texter says, I don't trust this general manager. I like the center and the corner, but if they don't put more effort into the offensive line, the Titans will be drafting top 10 again next year. So when it comes to the offensive line, I do not understand how so many of you complained about the line during the season last year, and you guys are not concerned with putting the same players out there again next season. That I have a hard time with. People are talking about Dylan Radins and the improvement that Dylan Radins has made, and I don't disagree with that. And again, Ian, did I not say that Dylan Radins is going to be the right tackle of this team this upcoming season?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said that.
I did not say that I'm endorsing that idea, and I'm not saying that I'm for it, but I just think that's what's going to happen. The problem with Radins is at right tackle last year, over the course of a season, he's going to allow about 6 sacks, which is pretty bad because, again, George Fant, $4 million last year for the Texans, is going to allow 3.2. Nicholas Petit-Frere, his rookie year, and he was awful, allowed, again, per 1,000 snaps, 5.3 sacks. So Radins allowing 6 sacks, that's bad. Secondly, it's the penalties. If Radins could cut out the penalties and all the false starts and everything else, then you might be able to put Radins in there as the 5th guy. But the penalties count. And when you get a false start on 2nd and 4 and now it's 2nd and 9, you just ruin the drive. And that's almost the same as a sack. So stop trying to convince yourself that Dylan Radins is good. We've had 3 years of Dylan Radins, and because he was drafted in the 2nd round, he's been given every opportunity. And he's a backup. That's what he is. He's a backup 6th offensive lineman that can play either tackle or either guard spot. But you don't want that. One texter says, Jared, the Texans made a playoff run with George Fant at right tackle, who wasn't signed until later in the offseason. Pump the brakes, there's still time. It's called the offseason, not the off 2 days. You're right. The difference is that the Houston Texans had Titus Howard on their team, who they had decided to move to guard, and that opened up the tackle spot that they went and grabbed. But they also had $30 million Laramie Tunzel on the other side. They also had $12 million Shaq Mason at guard. They were not in a crunch to sign that tackle. And again, Fant is still probably a low-end starter, high-end backup. And if you think that this team is going to win football games because of decisions made in June and July, you are kidding yourself. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins worked out for them last year. But how many football games did they win? This is the time of the year where you remake your team. And the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars the last 2 years are living proof that this is where you do it. And when you stink, you have to overpay in order to get people to come to your team. Texter into the text line says, do you think it's a quiet day for the Titans because the big positions of need are left tackle and wide receiver, and it feels like there's a holdup at wide receiver until Calvin Ridley signs? That was not a problem. First of all, Ridley can't sign until, he says signs till Wednesday. Nobody can sign till Wednesday. So that doesn't matter. But the problem is Darnell Mooney went off the board, and he went to Atlanta. I'm not a Darnell Mooney fan, by the way. Gabriel Davis is off the board. I don't think there's a slow problem there. And I think I had somebody yesterday that tweeted me and was like, Jared, you're worried about right tackle. Right tackle will be fine. We'll draft Fuaga in the 1st round. And I'm like, well, then who plays left tackle? I just don't get it. Oof. Texture says, if the Titans have a better right guard and center, the whole line overall will be better. And don't you think that will make the line better overall? Who's the better right guard? They've got the better center. Who's the better right guard? 615-737-1025. That's our phone number. 615-737-1025 here on our program. And again, there's a lot of names out there that are like, who knows? There is one potential trade that seems to be coming up here with the Titans, and apparently, reportedly, it's picking up steam. I just don't see how. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The Kansas City Chiefs have placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on Minden grad L'Jarius Sneed. And this gives Sneed the opportunity to talk to other teams who then could work out a trade for the former Louisiana Tech star defensive back. The Chiefs have told Sneed this and let him know that they're open to completing a trade. A new contract for Sneed could be worked out with another team as part of a trade to kick off the new league year on Wednesday. Now, if JJ were to play this season with the Chiefs on the franchise tag, he'd earn just under $20 million. In 57 regular season games, Sneed has 10 interceptions and 40 passes defended.
Okay, so L'Jarius Sneed we all know is out there, but you have to trade for him the same way you have to trade for T. Higgins. Now, I have not heard this report, so I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently Buck said that there is steam gaining, or that it is gaining steam, that the Titans are going to work out a trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary, with a pass rush that has a healthy Harold Landry, a healthy Jeffrey Simmons, and I would hope a big old fat boy like DJ Reader in there in the middle, that might be pretty dangerous. But what are they going to give up in order to get Sneed? The only things that you have that the Chiefs would want, I think, are the 7th pick. You're not getting that. The 38th pick. You're not getting that. And next year's first-round pick. And you're not getting that. I don't think they would be interested in next year's second-round pick, because next year's second-round pick, I think the going rate for Sneed's probably going to be a second-round pick, but next year's second-round pick devalues it because you don't get the player this year. And I have seen some people that have suggested, well, what if you trade 38 and you get 64 in return their second-round pick from Kansas City? And I'm like, Kansas City's not going to do that, because I would believe that Kansas City would only want, they want a player in return. And so if they make a pick swap here, I don't think the value of that is equal to a player that they're giving up off their roster. It's like, if I'm going to give up L'Jarius Sneed, I want a player on my team. I don't just want a better player than I could have had. So I would love to have L'Jarius Sneed on the Titans, just like I'd probably love to have T. Higgins. But when I have to give something up in order to get him, the question is, what am I willing to give up? And I'm not willing to give up 7, 38, or next year's first-round pick. I think we can all agree 7's off the table. 38 for me, I would take off the table, because I think 38 is your next receiver. That we hope, I'm not going to anoint him right away, but we hope that 38 becomes your superstar receiver. That becomes Will Levis's Marvin Harrison, right? That becomes his guy. And therefore, a veteran, trading that for a veteran corner doesn't make a lot of sense. And considering that you don't have any other picks after 38 in the top 100, that's a problem. And then I'm not trading away next year's first, as I have said many a time. I'm not trading away next year's first, because next year's first is Will Levis insurance. If Levis stinks, then you will stink. And if you stink, that pick will be a high pick, and that might be your quarterback next year. So, I'm not saying Buck's wrong about his report. I haven't heard that. But I don't see how it would be feasible that the Titans would be able to pull off a trade for L'Jarius Sneed. One texter says, Jared, why have the Titans not signed a backup quarterback? I was hoping for Joe Flacco. So was I. But as I've been following the tea leaves with the backup quarterback position, I think there's a chance that the Titans might be able to get Joe Flacco. I think there is a chance. Not a great chance, because I don't know if Flacco would want to be here, but I saw today, oh my God, I almost went crazy. I saw today that the Titans, Josina Anderson reported the Titans were interested in Jameis Winston. Oh God, no. No. You don't want him mentoring Will Levis, Jameis Winston, the dumbest quarterback in the NFL. His last act with the Saints was open insubordination of the coach. Pass. Wes in Hermitage has been waiting patiently. Thank you for calling, and thank you for waiting. What's up, Wes?
Jared, you set me up, man. I've got to ask. I've been really critical of Ren over the past month, and I came to the senses with a couple of my friends that I was going to, quote unquote, let Ren cook. And I'm not too happy about the signing of the linebacker last night with Murphy. I don't think that makes us any better. But I'm trying to figure out if you can talk me off this ledge. I'm trying to let Ren cook, and I'm trying to trust the process. But then I see that we're in conversations with Jameis Winston, and I lost it, man. Like, I can't unsee that. I can't unhear it. And now I don't know what way we're going, and I don't have a whole lot of hope. So is there anything you can give me to make me calm down with this?
I mean, I'm more worried about the fact that they don't have a starting tackle, but I hear what you're saying, Wes. And I wish I had something, and I appreciate your call. I wish I had something that could say, hey, trust this process because they'll get it right. But I don't necessarily feel that way either. I mean, I said they needed 5 day one guys on free agency. They signed 4, and the 4th guy might stink. So it's not like it was a total horrendous day yesterday for the Titans, but I didn't think it was enough. And on the Jameis Winston front, I mean, again, like we can just pretend that what happened to Jameis Winston at Florida State didn't happen. We can pretend that what happened with that Uber driver just didn't happen. Like, we can pretend all those things didn't happen. I'm not going to. And then the other thing is, as Warren Moon talked about, the importance of having that veteran leader in there with Will Levis to help him learn the game. You want Jameis Winston? The guy who, again, his last play for the Saints was being told, kneel the ball down and saying, F you, coach, and going out there and running a play? You want that guy mentoring Will Levis? Pass. And the fact that the Titans would even consider it is embarrassing, if that is in fact the case. But we don't know that. But with Jacoby Brissett signing with the Patriots, and I think he's a bum, with Jacoby Brissett signing with the Patriots, and somebody else signed a backup quarterback. Oh, Jameis to Cleveland. I don't know who else would want Flacco. And so I think Flacco might be I saw
a rumor that could be an AFC South team for Flacco.
Who? Indy?
Either Indy or the Titans has just said possible AFC South, leaning AFC South for Flacco decision.
Well, Gardner Minshew, if they sign Flacco, I will like that.
So it's either, that'd be cool, Titans or the Colts maybe.
More of your phones at 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025, here on the program. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So you heard right there in Ian's update that the news of the day, Derrick Henry is leaving the Titans. That is the biggest news. Now, we knew yesterday that Derrick Henry was going to be going somewhere else when the Titans signed Tony Pollard. But to see today $9 million guaranteed in the first year to Derrick Henry, it's like, wow, he really is going somewhere else, and he really is going to the Ravens. Now, here's what I've determined. I've determined that Rand Carthon wanted to do this the whole time. He didn't want Derrick Henry anymore. He wanted to move on probably midway through last year. I believe that the Titans decided not to move on from Derrick Henry because they needed leadership. They had a young quarterback. And quite frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if Mike Vrabel said, whoa. I mean, how are we supposed to win any football games without Derrick Henry? Which is a fair question. So they ended up not doing it. But I don't think the Titans were ever going to bring Derrick Henry back, especially when Rand said at the Combine, well, I talked to Derrick on his way out, and Derrick went right to Taylor Lewan's bus as soon as the season was over and sat down and basically told Titan fans, hey, it's okay. Not everything's made to last forever. It's like, yeah, Derrick Henry is moving on. And I think Derrick Henry probably always wanted to go to the Ravens because he talked on that bus about wanting to go to a team to win a Super Bowl, wanting to go to an AFC team that wanted to trade for him, in which would have been a big headline grabber. And I'm like, Baltimore. He said two teams. I think it was Baltimore and Kansas City. And while I wish Derrick Henry the best, I don't like the Ravens, so I'm not going to root for them. I wonder what this means for him and Lamar. And what I mean by that is Lamar Jackson can't win in the playoffs. That's his problem. Lamar is a two-time league MVP. Lamar's records in the regular season, whether it's the win-loss record, whether it's the total yards and everything else, it is phenomenal. I mean, he wins, he gets to the playoffs, he plays in one of the toughest divisions, he runs, he throws, everything. And then he gets to the playoffs, where defenses are better, and where he's got to go up against Joe Burrow, or Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen, and he loses. And it happens constantly. And I just don't know if Derrick Henry solves the problem for Lamar Jackson, but given the success the Ravens have had and the quality of player Derrick Henry is, this is going to, again, put an insane amount of pressure on Lamar and Derrick Henry to win a championship. So much that I wonder if making this decision for Derrick Henry could cost him the Hall of Fame. Chris Mad Dog Russo came on our show at the Super Bowl, and he said Derrick Henry's a Hall of Famer. Regardless of what happens, if he never plays another down again, he's a Hall of Famer. Now, I've heard PK talk about this. PK votes on the Hall of Fame, and I don't think that PK feels that way. That Derrick Henry is a slam dunk Hall of Famer. If Derrick Henry goes to Baltimore and they don't win, I wonder if there's going to be this sentiment of, I mean, even with the best quarterback on a team that was the number one seed in the AFC, a team that was right there with Kansas City, Derrick Henry still couldn't get over the hump. He's just not that special. I do wonder if that's something that is about to happen. Because as far as a fit is concerned, I see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. If it's 3rd down and 2, I don't know how you stop that. Because one of those two guys is getting the ball, and you're going to have to sell out and guess one, and if you guess wrong and the other guy gets it, it's probably a touchdown. It's definitely a conversion. The problem is the entire game is not played in 3rd and 2. One of the biggest issues that Derrick Henry has had over the years, and we know we've talked about it every day. Some Titans fans have lived in denial about this, but the reality is Derrick Henry can't catch the ball. Yeah, they can throw him a screen pass and he can run with it, and he's done well over the years doing that. But as far as actually catching the ball out of the backfield, Derrick Henry can't do it. On 3rd down and 9, he has to come out of the game. And when you can't catch the ball as a running back, you can't play when your team is down. Well, the Ravens' biggest problem is that they are not a team that is built to be successful when they're behind. Mahomes can be down 20 points and come back in a game. They're prepared to do that. It's harder now without Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, who was there originally, but he can still do it. Josh Allen can do it, which is why you can never rule Buffalo out of a game. In fact, what really cost Buffalo in the playoffs, I know the kicker missed the kick, but they tried to kill the clock. They didn't want to give the ball back to Mahomes. They wanted to make their field goal and go to overtime. And the only way you're going to beat Mahomes in a situation like that is if you are able to kill the clock, kick the field goal with time expiring, go to overtime, and then win the game. Like, that's the only way that you can, and you get the ball, go down the field, and score a touchdown, and then play some defense. That's the only way you can win. But Buffalo couldn't kill the clock because while they can pick up 68 yards on one throw like it's nobody's business, they struggle with kind of those crunch time, short yardage plays. Baltimore's problem is they're not built to come back from behind. That if Lamar gets into a shootout, he can't go shot for shot with Joe Burrow. He can't go shot for shot with Patrick Mahomes. We saw that in the AFC Championship game. Derrick Henry's biggest problem is that if you get behind, he doesn't play. So last year, the Ravens paid Gus Edwards almost no money. I mean, almost no money last year. And I think he signed for like $3.5 million with the Chargers. And they were first in rushing, and they were third in yards per attempt. And Derrick is going to do what? Keep them first in rushing? How does adding Derrick Henry, again, whose biggest weakness is he can't play in a shootout, he can't play in a game where you have to come from behind, how does Derrick Henry help the Ravens get over the Kansas City hump? And then, if Derrick Henry loses, how much are people going to point the finger at him? Because he's going to be hailed as the guy who's coming in here to take the Ravens to the promised land. And I don't know the answer to that. I like Derrick. I hope things work out for him. I'm not going to root for the Ravens. I'm not going to root for Derrick Henry to fail. I'll promise you that. But I hope it works out. I hope it's not Eddie George with the Cowboys. That's what I hope. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kyle, wanted to reset the Derrick Henry news of the day. Kyle is up next here on Stillman and Company. Go ahead, Kyle.
Hey, Jared. I'm very interested in Buck's interest in Sneed. I would still trade, like I said yesterday, the 104 pick, the 38 pick for Kansas City's third, and then give us Sneed. That gives us a franchise left tackle, another starting left corner, and a burner receiver in the third round. What's wrong with it?
Well, I think that you've got to remember that you now don't have a second rounder when you do that. So you're talking about trading your second rounder and your fourth rounder for Sneed.
And then receiving a third.
Okay.
Because I don't want to give up the second just for Sneed. I want to sweeten it a little bit and give us a third back and move up and get a better receiver.
Okay. So right now, I don't know what the board will look like in the third round. I don't know. Personally, and I appreciate your call, Kyle. Personally, I don't think Kansas City's going to take that because I think they can get a better offer for L'Jarius Sneed. But now you've just taken away, again, another pick that's supposed to be a young player that's supposed to help this team. And I know it's outside of the top 100, but it's not in the 7th round. So you gave away a player in order to draft Will Levis last year. And now you want to give away another player in order to add L'Jarius Sneed to your team when you could just sign a corner that's out there like Kyle Fuller. You could sign him, and you wouldn't have to give up that player or the position of the 38th pick. And I don't know if there will be in that third round. I don't know if there will be a speed receiver. Like at that point, Xavier Legette will be off the board for sure. Ladd McConkey will be off the board for sure. Xavier Worthy will be off the board for sure. I'm not with that. If you do that, in my opinion, what you're doing is you're prioritizing corner over receiver, and I'm not doing that. Not with a young quarterback. 615-737-1025. Back to your phone, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Let's talk about White Bison. I love White Bison. That's right. It's my local coffee shop, and it should be your local coffee shop as well. Stay warm and cozy with their new honey-based drinks like the Cinnamon Beehive Latte, the Iced Honey Nut Macchiato, the Vanilla Rooibos Tea Latte, and more. White Bison is your local coffee shop with food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. So download the app and order ahead. And when you download that twice daily and White Bison app, you can enroll in their rewards program, and you can place orders on the go anytime and automatically earn on every purchase. So download the app to order ahead, and you get one free coffee every time you buy 7. That's part of White Bison's rewards. Buy 7, get one free. White Bison and twice daily, fresh all day.
seems like the door to the Titans is closed. And that's not a bad thing if it is.
No, I'm not saying it like it's closed, but I just feel like I said earlier, I feel like they're going in a different direction. And I feel like today definitely solidified that. And that's okay. That happens. That's the nature of the business. If we want something to last for forever, nothing does, especially in this business.
There you go. That was Derrick Henry. And so he wasn't coming back. When he says, hey, there's nothing there, Derrick Henry did talk to Paul at paulkaharski.com. And I guess Paul and Derrick Henry exchanged some texts. And this time it actually was Derrick Henry that Paul was texting with. And said about Tony Pollard, quote, I think Tony Pollard is a great pickup for them. Them, I guess, meaning the Titans. Tajay Spears and him will be a great dynamic duo. Tony Pollard is a good dude. You all will love him. Henry then said, it'll definitely be weird to play against the Titans. I have so much love for everyone in that organization, the fans, the city of Nashville, and still have the soccer team, so I'll be around. Henry is a minority owner, as Paul points out, of Nashville SC. I wonder how much money Derrick Henry actually put into that, but that's a different discussion for a different day. And so Derrick Henry saying, hey, I still love Nashville. I still, Al Smith and I, the old Oilers linebacker, we got into it at the Super Bowl, and he said he wouldn't retire Derrick Henry's number. I think number 22 should be retired. But we'll see what they end up doing. One texter says, Jared, what if the Titans traded Treylon Burks in exchange for L'Jarius Sneed and gave up a 2026 fourth-round pick? So we've talked about this in the past when it comes to Treylon Burks. They don't want to do that. They're not going to do that. If you called the league, like let's say the Titans went out and signed Curtis Samuel and Calvin Ridley and still plan to draft a receiver at 38. Thus, there would not be a spot on the roster for Burks. And you called the entire league and you asked them what they would trade you for Treylon Burks, you probably would get a 5th or a 6th round pick. They're looking for a 1st or a 2nd round pick in exchange for L'Jarius Sneed. And I have this talk with Predators fans all the time, or at least I did when Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene were on the team. And I kept saying, when people would say, Jared, we need to trade Johansson, we need to trade Duchene. I'm like, they don't want players you don't want either. They want the players that you like. So Burks is not a part of this. Chad from Clarksville says if Rand Carthon signs Jameis Winston, he will immediately lose the entire fan base. I saw a report today, Ian, that said that Jameis Winston was signing with Cleveland.
That is true.
So, I mean, look, Deshaun and Jameis in the same quarterback room.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, they really respect women over there in Cleveland with those two. I mean, see, and that's the thing. You can win games with a team that is just a bunch of outlaws and, the kind of guy. I don't like winning that way. But if you want to, you can. The Dallas Cowboys in the 90s and Michael Irvin doing all that cocaine and everything else, and it didn't matter. That was their style. But I don't want Will Levis thinking that kind of behavior is acceptable. I don't want Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson around my young quarterback. Joe Flacco, I like. The worst part about all of this, and I don't know what Tannehill's going to do because I don't know if there's going to be a starting job available for Tannehill. And I don't think there's going to be a starting job for him available. I also don't know how many teams have iffy starters or if he'd be willing to go to a place where he is starting the year as the backup, period. I don't know if he'd be willing to do that because he's made so much money in his life, and working in the NFL is a very serious time commitment. But the guy who'd be the perfect backup here is Ryan Tannehill. Like, that's the guy, right? He and Levis already have a good friendship. If he had to play, he's better than most of the bum backup quarterbacks that are out there. But I don't think Tannehill's coming back because I think he would retire before he comes back to the Titans. If I were the Titans, I'd tell Tannehill, like, hey, Ryan, like, if you want to come back for 1 year at $9 million, we'll do it. 1 year at $10 million, we'll do it. We'll pay you more than we would pay a Joe Flacco. We'll pay him $8 million. We'll pay you 10 because we respect you. And we'd like you to be the backup quarterback. If there's not another job out there for you, and even then, I think he would retire before doing that. Texter into the text line says Minnesota for Tannehill. Sam Darnold just signed there yesterday for 1 year, $10 million. And let me say this. I think Sam Darnold is going to do a good job. I think he did a good job in Carolina when he took back over for Baker Mayfield, and he and DJ Moore almost got that team into the playoffs. I think Sam Darnold will do well. So I think Tannehill's out as far as Minnesota's concerned. It has to be a team. Like Pittsburgh would have been the perfect spot because Kenny Pickett is the starting quarterback, but he's on thin ice. That would have been the spot. He knows Arthur Smith, and he could pretend to be the backup until they move off of Kenny, or he could battle it out with Kenny in training camp. The other place I would suggest is Miami, but they already have a backup quarterback in Mike White, and obviously Tannehill's been there too, so I don't see him going there. But Pittsburgh would be the spot for him. Problem is, they're going with Russell Wilson, which I don't necessarily like. Trevor will join us coming up next. Trevor's reaction. Here's what I want to know from Trevor. 1, his reaction to all the signings, but especially the Lloyd Cushenberry signing. 2, how much more work needs to be done on the offensive line? And who could start for the Titans next year that's already on the team, and who absolutely cannot, who they need to be looking at in free agency, and more. We'll do that next here on the program. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. I had Window Nation at my home a couple of weeks ago, and it was great because I learned right then and there that I had good windows. But a lot of people don't know if they need their windows replaced or not. And when those cold air drafts are coming through and when it gets down to 20, 30 degrees at night, and you're having to crank up the heat, and then all of a sudden your energy bills are through the roof, it's probably because you have bad windows. And March is a critical time to check your home's windows because if they're cracked and leaking and they won't stay open or they won't close, then it's time to call the pros at Window Nation. Right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free. Plus, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. With proven quality and service, it's no wonder that thousands have trusted Window Nation. So do not miss out. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free, plus 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. 866-90-NATION. It's windownation.com. Stillman and company. So the Titans keep trying to watch everybody else sign players in free agency. You know, I thought the Titans were going to truly be aggressive, right? Like when they got off immediately and signed Lloyd Cushenberry, I thought, yes, a center who's not Aaron Brewer, who, by the way, signed for $21 million. Now, again, it's not all guaranteed. We'll see the real money whenever that comes out. But signed for $21 million with the Miami Dolphins. That I cannot believe. But the Tennessee Titans are taking their sweet time in free agency while everybody else is signing. And as of right now, I look at the holes on this football team, and I get nervous. Left tackle, still got to fill that. Right guard, still got to fill that. Right tackle, still got to fill that. Defensive line, after losing Danico Autry, still have to fill that. Another defensive lineman, after losing after losing Tier Tart, they'll still have to fill that. An inside linebacker, they signed one yesterday, who, again, Pro Football Focus says isn't very good. But they need two inside linebackers unless you want Jack Gibbons back out there. A safety, a kicker, and another corner. That is a problem. And so I don't know where they're going to do this. But yesterday, all these Titan fans were sitting there and telling me, oh, no, Jared, it'll be fine. We'll just plug Dylan Radins in there, and we'll just put this guy, and we'll put that guy. And I'm like, hold on. Wait a minute now. You can't just load up on all these terrible players. So, again, I know people get mad at me anytime I criticize the Titans. They say it's personal. And I've said it's not personal, it's personnel. And right now, they don't have enough of it. And meanwhile, I look at the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans are just going out there and acquiring a new player at every position every single day. And I keep wondering why the Titans can't do something like that. But, oh, no, don't criticize the Titans or else everybody else will get mad. So as of right now, the Titans have made 5 moves. They've re-signed their long snapper. They signed Tony Pollard, which, again, like, I like the Tony Pollard signing. I like it. I don't have a problem with it. But it's not like you signed Tony Pollard so now everybody can celebrate and you can kick your feet up. Because running back wasn't even one of the bigger needs. Lloyd Cushenberry was an absolute had to have, and I loved it because they signed it. They're done with it. Move on. Chidobe Awuzie, again, they needed a starting corner. Awuzie's a starting corner, and he's, back off the knee injury that he suffered in 2022, so he should be fine there. And then Kenneth Murray, Pro Football Focus says that Kenneth Murray sucks. So that's an issue that they have there. But again, still no right tackle. And I don't know, again, I'll give you left tackle where they're going to use that 7th pick. But no right tackle. Brunskill's on the roster at right guard. I got a problem with it. Trevor Mat joins us now on the program, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trevor, let's start with your reaction to the Titans free agent signings, and let's start with Lloyd Cushenberry, the center from Denver. What do you make of that signing and how that fits with what the Titans and Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan are going to want to do?
I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. He is a steady, solid, young veteran. And he's been a starter for basically 4 years. He's been durable. He did have a soft tissue injury and missed some games last year, but that's not a concern of any kind. He's a solid run blocker. He's a solid pass blocker. He's not spectacular necessarily, but he is a spectacular leader. LSU gives the number 18 to the guy that most exemplifies playing like a Tiger. Cushenberry was the only LSU offensive lineman to ever be awarded that number. Now, I couldn't wear it because he played offensive line, but he was awarded that number. So you've got a steady player who is a superlative leader. And then when you think about that offensive line, let's assume, just for purposes of discussion, that they draft Joe Alt, left tackle out of Notre Dame, with the 7th pick. That'll put them in a position in their rebuild of that position group of having a steady, solid, young veteran at center. And in each of the 2 last drafts, they drafted the highest-ranked offensive lineman at any position. Skoronski who they put at left guard, but he was the highest-rated offensive lineman last draft, and then Joe Alt is the highest-rated offensive lineman this draft. So if they get Alt and adding Cushenberry, 3 of the 5 positions on that offensive line all of a sudden will become young with tremendous potential.
You know, Trevor, one thing that Titan fans and I have argued with over the last couple of days are the other moves because, for instance, the Raiders had Jermaine Illuminor, and he went and signed with the Giants for $14 million over 2 years, and I was furious because I don't see a right tackle in free agency that is good enough that can come in here and play the position, and they don't have the draft picks to be able to draft one of the higher-end right tackles, which means either they're going to have to take a veteran that's probably more of a backup and stick him out there, or try to run the risk of Radence or Petit Frere or Duncan at right tackle. And I know Bill Callahan's a good coach, but I don't think he's a miracle worker. So what do you make about the right tackle spot and the Titans need to fill it as opposed to seeing if Bill Callahan can fix it with what they have there in Radence, Petit Frere, or Duncan?
Yeah, I think if, as long as they keep Chris Hubbard around, then, and if Petit Frere stays healthy, I think that competition should give them a serviceable right tackle, one that won't cause them to lose games all the time. And that's enough to be a placeholder to get to the next step, which is to get the guy they want that will help them win games. So to me, the competition, if they've got those 2 guys competing there, that allows them to move Radens inside to compete with Daniel Brunskill at right guard. And the same thing would happen if all 4 of those guys stay healthy, then the competition and the coaching will upgrade the right side enough to where it won't be horrible. I kind of tend to think that the starting right tackle is on the roster right now for 2024. I kind of think that the starting right guard is not on the roster right now. They'll either draft a guy, or when there are other teams cutting people at the end of training camp, I think they'll be able to pull in a right guard that'll be able to step right in and start and be an upgrade to that position over Radens or Brunskill. So everything isn't over even after the draft is over and even after training camp starts at the end of free agency. I kind of think that 4 of the 5 guys that are going to start this year are going to be known before training camp. But I think that right guard, I don't think he's on the roster yet.
So what makes you sure that Petit Frere can play right tackle? Because he wasn't very good as a rookie. Pro Football Focus gave him a rating of 52.3, and he allowed 5 sacks per 1,000 snaps. And last year when he played, he was terrible, in which he allowed 3 sacks and almost 100 snaps. And, Again, I've got the theory that dumb guys stay dumb, fat guys stay fat, injured guys stay injured. And when you get busted, you're the one guy who gets busted for the gambling issue. That's not a good sign either. What makes you feel comfortable in Petit Frere after last year was a total bust?
I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable at all. But in watching him at Ohio State, he was athletic. He needed to get stronger, but he was athletic, and I thought that he would transition to the NFL and be a good offensive lineman at this level. He was forced into the right tackle position his rookie year, I believe, right? And then last year he was suspended for the first month and a half of the season with the gambling situation. And so as far as he goes relative to his potential, I don't think we've really seen his potential yet. And I think he's got a chance to develop into the player that I thought he was going to be coming out of Ohio State. So I don't want to hang my hat on that guy. But if his mind is right, and if he stays healthy, and if he doesn't get himself suspended, then I think he would add to the competition in a way that will improve the position.
And then why would you not be comfortable with Brunskill playing right guard next year?
Brunskill was a pleasant surprise to me last year. I think he may have been to you too, Jared, right?
Because I thought he was fine. I think he can be like the 5th guy on an offensive line, but I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, see, I thought he was a good backup forced into a starting role. And I thought he fought like crazy, and I didn't think he was the weak link on that offensive line. And so he got in the meantime, he got a full year of starting experience under his belt. That doesn't make him more talented, but it makes him more experienced. And it puts him in a better position to be able to hold down that position if he's the one that has to play that position. You know, when you look at left tackle, center, and right guard, the way they finished the season last year, right guard was the position that I felt least bad about.
Here's my thing, though, Trevor. Trevor Mat is with us. Last year, I thought when Radunz got settled in at right tackle, I think he actually played okay, and his grade at right tackle, according to Pro Football Focus, was 65.3, which would be better than, say, George Fance or Jonah Williams, who are both free agents, and significantly better than Petit Frere in 2022. He only gave up 6 sacks per 1,000, which is not great, but it's not the end of the world to give up 6 sacks in a season. The problem was the penalties. And he, per 1,000 snaps, would have averaged 12 penalties last year throughout the course of the season. I think that's bad, but I actually do think Radunz played okay at the end of last year, and I have not heard you bring him up as a right tackle possibility.
Because I don't think he's a tackle at either side. I don't think his feet are quick enough. And I didn't think that coming out of college. He had too many plays at the FCS level at North Dakota State where he had to turn and run and chase and desperately try to push the speed rusher by the quarterback. And he succeeded on a regular basis on the FCS level, but that's not fast enough in the NFL. I think he would be much better suited if they were to put him at guard and let him stay at guard. And that's why I think if he competes with Brunskill at right guard and let Petit Frere and Hubbard compete at right tackle, pending somebody else coming in, whether it's in the draft or whether it's later in free agency or whether more likely it's a late cut from another team at the end of training camp, I think that Radunz's best opportunity to have an NFL career that's productive is to make him primarily a guard and let him be a tackle in an emergency basis. And I thought as an emergency tackle this last year, once again, he was not the weak link on this offensive line. He actually was a pleasant surprise when you grade on a curve based on the rest of the offensive line.
So if the offensive line next year behind Will Levis is Joe Ald at left tackle, Peter Skoronski at left guard, Lloyd Cushenberry at center, Daniel Brunskill at right guard, and Nicholas Petit Frere at right tackle, you're comfortable with that?
It would be an enormous upgrade. Enormous upgrade. Now, Joe Alt would have to get up to speed pretty quickly. I think he will. But that offensive line compared to this one we had this last season, which was one of the worst in memory, would be Will Levis at quarterback would just be there. I am not. I would be comfortable with those two guys as backups. But they showed last year that they were good backups. And so I think they could hold their own long enough to get somebody in. That's my hope.
Trevor Mat is with us, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics. We'll go over the other signings. Tony Pollard, Chidobe Awuzie, Kenneth Murray, and the holes the Titans have. And there is one position I'm starting to get very worried about with moves that are coming off the board. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company. Trevor Mat with us, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, Trevor Mat with us, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, we talked about the offensive line. We'll circle back on that here in a second, but I do want to get to the signings the Titans have made outside of the offensive line. Your thoughts on Tony Pollard in, Derrick Henry out?
Breaks my heart, but I'm fine with it. I think it's best for both sides. I'm really glad for Derrick going to a team that's got a chance to take him to the Super Bowl, or that he can help take to the Super Bowl. That's good. As far as the Titans are concerned, what Pollard does, along with Tajay Spears, is gives them two running backs that are versatile as runners and as pass catchers, not just screen passes, swing passes, things like that, but going downfield. And they could even line up either one of those guys spread out wide at H or even in the slot and do some things from time to time when they have both of them on the field, or if they want to go to an empty backfield. So I like Pollard from a standpoint of his versatility. He's not as powerful a runner as Derrick. Nobody is, really. But he can do so many more things in so many more situations, whether the team needs to run out the last 4 minutes because they have a lead, or whether they desperately need to throw the ball and score twice in the last 4 minutes because they trail. And Pollard is a guy that gives them a lot of options with that.
Trevor, according to Pro Football Focus, the running grades for Henry and for Pollard are very similar over the last 3 years. And Pollard's receiving grades are not great. And their numbers are somewhat similar. Now we got to keep in mind that Zeke was the lead back for a while there in Dallas. But the question I have is Pollard at 26 years old a better bet for the Titans than Derrick at 30 years old?
He is 3 years from now, when quarterback Will Levis, who will be going into his second season, will be entering his prime. 3 years from now, Derrick Henry may still be running at the highest level. I don't know. If anybody can do it, he can. He's half Superman. But 3 years from now is what they really need to think about, because they don't have a chance to get to the Super Bowl anyway, assuming the other teams they'd be competing with stay relatively healthy, getting past these great quarterbacks in the AFC, starting with Patrick Mahomes, until Levis is up to speed and can not be better than Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, but at least be good enough that he's not a drag on the potential for the team. So he'll take a few years to get up to that speed. And when he's up to speed, Pollard should still be a productive contributor for this team, whereas Derrick will be on the way out.
Trevor, what do you make of Chidobe Awuzie, the corner that's been in Dallas and was decent there, and then Cincinnati, where Brian Callahan was and was decent there? Had a torn ACL 2 years ago, comes back last season. What do you think about the addition of him at corner, knowing that Sean Murphy-Bunting has gone to Arizona and Christian Fulton's probably not coming back?
Yeah, this team, I still have nightmares about the busted coverages. Don't you? Where
it's awful.
They look great,
but Vrabel told
and then all of a sudden,
Trevor, Vrabel told me that they didn't have that many busted coverages last year and got mad at me for asking the question. I just leave that there.
Okay, well, maybe they didn't have that many, but I don't know what that many means, because I kept on seeing strong coverage and then somebody running wide open behind the secondary. So if that's not a busted coverage, call it something else. But the thing about Awuzie is that he's played a lot, he's experienced, he's disciplined. And he doesn't get a lot of takeaways. He doesn't have a lot of interceptions. That could be because he can't catch. It could be because he's not a great ball hawk, but it also could be because he doesn't take a whole lot of chances. And I'm fine with that third option. If it turns out that he comes here and he doesn't get a lot of interceptions, but he doesn't take risks that will allow a double move to get open behind him or things like that, then I think that's fine. I like him. I think he makes them steadier at the corner position, and they desperately needed that.
Trevor, what did you make of Kenneth Murray? Pro Football Focus says he sucks, the inside backer from the Chargers. But I was not a huge Azeez Al-Shaair fan, and he just got a boatload of money from the Texans. So what do you make of the Kenneth Murray pickup?
I'm surprised that Al-Shaair didn't work out because of his athleticism. But here's the thing. Kenneth Murray, if you just look at what he did with the Chargers, he struggled his first 3 years. And then last year, he had the best year of his career, and they let him go anyway. The thing is, when you look at him at Oklahoma coming out, into the NFL, at Oklahoma, he was a terror. He's about 240 pounds. He runs a legitimate 4.5 40, and Oklahoma just turned him loose. They let him run and make plays, and he did. He was an offense wrecker. Then he got to the NFL, and he tried to play the same way, and NFL offensive coordinators just took advantage of it. Even college offensive coordinators did, where he could run like crazy, so they would bait him into taking off in one direction, and he just runs super fast out of position. Or he would overrun a running play or a short pass and miss a tackle because he just went too far, too fast, trying to make all those plays that made him a star at Oklahoma. Last year, he slowed it down a little bit, but, he still became available. So he's the kind of guy that it's all about how he chooses to approach the game this year with the Titans. If he tries to run around and be Superman, then he's going to have the same problems. But if he slows down just to beat and doesn't try to be Superman, then he will absolutely, massively improve the athleticism and athletic potential of that linebacker core, because he's got the speed to cover fast tight ends and slow receivers. He's got the ability to blitz. He's got the ability to run sideline to sideline. He just has to make sure that he does it within his assignment and doesn't just take off like a crazy guy like he did in college.
Trevor Mat is with us. Trevor, how do you view the Titans using both Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard? And if you were coaching the Titans, would we see both of them out there on the field at the same time?
Well, you've got to ask yourself who the better playmakers are right now. And if you look at the tight ends and receivers that are on this team right now and you compare them one by one as playmakers, different positions, different styles of bodies, but as potential playmakers with Pollard and Spears, you don't have a whole lot of guys in that wide receiver and tight end core that you're going to count on more than Pollard and Spears, even as receivers. And so I could see them, until they get that wide receiver room and tight end room stocked the way they want it, performing the way they want it, I could see them playing both of those guys at the same time, sometimes both in the backfield at the same time. But when defenses play a standard box and a standard front against a two running back look, then without substituting, I would take one of those guys and put him out in the slot. Now, all of a sudden, the defense is in trouble because they don't have the linebacker that can run out there and cover that guy in space. If they keep a nickel out there or a safety, he better be a really strong, powerful nickel to handle the running game, or a really fast safety to cover those guys when they go out for a pass. So I think there's great potential to get matchup opportunities against defenses that don't have that ultra fast, ultra athletic linebacker or a fast nickel corner who can still hold up physically when they pound it straight down the hill at him when he has to come into the box because the running back comes out of the slot back into the box. I love the possibilities.
Trevor Mat is with us. At wide receiver, I feel like the Titans are going tackle at 7, wide receiver at 38. I still think they need to sign a receiver on top of that, but I'm having a hard time deciding what kind of receiver they need. I've got slot receivers like Curtis Samuel and Tyler Boyd, and Tyler Boyd has familiarity with Brian Callahan from Cincinnati, and I've got outside guys like Calvin Ridley and Hollywood Brown. What do the Titans, you know what's in this draft, you know the speed that's in this draft, what do the Titans need in free agency at wide receiver to complement the wide receiver that they're going to get in the draft?
Ideally, they would get a speed wide receiver in the draft, and they would get a slot who can do a lot of things in free agency. Boyd, being well known by Callahan, is a really good thing. Callahan will know what he can do, what he can't, what he can count on, what he can't. And if he brings him here, it tells you something. And if he doesn't bring him here, that also tells you something, at least if he doesn't try. The thing about Curtis Samuel with Washington is he's a lot like Deebo Samuel with the 49ers, where he can do anything. He can line up outside and go deep. He can line up in the slot and run those little slot routes. He can do jet sweeps and screens and all kinds of different things. And I think Deebo Samuel would upgrade this receiver room tremendously. Curtis Samuel. And he's got a lot of experience, which is going to be important for a guy like Kyle Phillips if he's able to stick around as a young receiver.
But beggars can't be choosers. And the problem is, where are you going to get that speed guy? The outside guys, you're talking about Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's missed a lot of time through gambling suspension and who knows where his head's at. You don't want to bring a guy in, that's going to want to prove himself above what the team needs him to do. So a guy like Ridley, they need to have a lot of conversations about. I don't know that they're going to get that receiver that they really want, even though there are a lot of really fast guys that should drop down in the draft. But the best chance would be if the Chargers or somebody else takes Joe Alt ahead of them at 7, that would push one of those receivers down to 7. And they may decide to go with the playmaker instead of the blocker at that point if that happens.
Trevor, on the offensive line front, I just want to, again, if we were sitting in the meeting room, because right now I have the needs for the Titans as left tackle, which I think we can agree they're going to get at 7, left tackle, right guard, right tackle, two defensive linemen to replace Tart and Autry, an inside linebacker to go with Murray, a safety to replace Byard, a kicker, and a corner. And yet I am convinced after talking to you that right tackle is not a need for the Titans. If we were the Titans and we were talking about this, would we look at right tackle as a need, or would we say, okay, let's go with Petit Frere or let's go with Radens and go from there?
It's not a desperate need, not anymore if they get Joe Alt or somebody like that at left tackle. Keep in mind, they could draft a right tackle. I mean, J.C. Latham, the right tackle out of Alabama, is moving up the draft boards. A lot of people have him mocked to the Chargers just above the Titans. And even though he's a right tackle, they may end up taking him anyhow and solidify that position and get some chewing gum and MacGyvering to fix left tackle for a while. But right tackle to me is not a desperate position. To me, defensive line is more of a desperate position right now, because, they're going to need some young guys to roll in the rotation, or else that defense is just going to get exhausted by the fourth quarter and the offense is going to be in desperate throwing mode all the time.
On the defensive line front, the Titans were linked, according to Josina Anderson, to DJ Reader of the Bengals, who's a straight-up nose tackle. I mean, he is a big old boy. I've thought about this. Autry had 10 sacks last year. If the Titans sign a nose tackle on the defensive line, that guy won't get sacks. But will that guy allow Simmons to play the Autry role more if they get a pure nose tackle in there to go with Simmons?
Yes. Where you get your sacks are on 3rd and long. The way you get to 3rd and long is you stuff the run on early downs. And so the nose tackles that are 2-down run stuffers that usually don't play on 3rd and long, those guys are valuable because they help get you to 3rd and long. If you're always 3rd and 2 or 3, then your pass rushers are playing the run first all the time. So that kind of a guy would be valuable.
And then last one for you. I just want to – so you think Petit Frere can play right tackle in the NFL?
I think that we have not seen remotely the best of Petit Frere. I think his rookie year when he was pressed into service, he was overwhelmed. This last year, because he missed the first 6 weeks of the season, I think it was, with the suspension, then he came back in and got hurt. I don't think that we saw anything that he can do. To me, it's all about his head. If he bears down and grinds it out and wants to prove that he deserves to be on this team, he is talented enough to be a serviceable right tackle this year, if he's got that mindset.
And you just don't think that Radens can be the answer at right tackle?
No, not long term. I thought he did better than I expected him to do as a backup this last year. But I wouldn't put him there. I think it does a disservice to him to make him a tackle. I think he'd be better off at guard with tackle reps in case he has to go out and play tackle. That happened to me. I mean, I played all 5 offensive line positions in the NFL. I started 4 of the 5. Right tackle was the only one I never started at. But when you put me, that meant that I could not focus at one position for 5 years and excel at that one position. That meant that I got good at doing everything, but I was never great at doing anything. And I think for Radens, you're doing him a better service and the team a better service to maximize his potential at guard and give him enough reps that he can be an emergency left tackle.
And last one for you. I know we're running low here, but can Bill Callahan make Radens a starting guard, and can he make Petit Frere a starting tackle?
he's got a better chance with Petit Frere because I think Petit Frere is more has more athletic potential on the upside than Radens does. I think that they both need to continue to improve their strength, but he can't make them more talented. What he can do is coach their feet and their hands and their target. And that's a target meaning what they punch and what they hit with their face mask. If you have solid feet with your first steps being correct, if you have good hands, meaning when the hands are knocked off of the defender and you can reset them and get them back on target, and you can maintain your balance with your base, then you're not falling off blocks, and then you have a chance. And that's what he can do. He'll never improve their upside, but he can raise their floor to make it so they don't have as many terrible plays that stop drives.
Trevor Matich, as always, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters, and ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Trevor, appreciate you.
Thank you, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Matich is always on the program. 615-737-1025. It's 5 o'clock. What have the Titans done? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So I got to tell you, right now, day 2 of free agency, this is not enough from the Tennessee Titans. Like yesterday when the Tony Pollard news came out, I was like, okay, I get it. I didn't think they had to jump at running back, but again, if they circle a guy they like, the Pro Football Focus numbers say that he's incredibly comparable to Derrick Henry in terms of efficiency. And so if that's the case, then you're getting the guy that you think can be the 1B with Spears, and that's fine. Cushenberry they had to have. They had to go out. They had to buy a center. They could not put small tush Aaron Brewer back out there. They needed to get a real big, fat, legitimate NFL center, and they did. Chidobe Awuzie, fine. Needed a corner. It's like Trevor said, nightmares of watching Christian Fulton play last year. Christian Fulton sucks. I'm glad he's gone. So Awuzie, good. And then Kenneth Murray, again, he's got talent. He was a first-round pick, which we're not allowed to do on this show, is say, oh, well, he was a first-round pick, so he must be good. But he did play. But Pro Football Focus says he stinks, and I'm not very excited about him. They still got needs everywhere. They still got needs at right guard, right tackle, where, again, Trevor says Nicholas Petit-Frere could play, but didn't sound like Trevor was all that excited about that idea. Defensive line, which he says is a bigger deal right now than offensive line, with Autry going to the Texans. Inside linebacker, safety, kicker, corner. This is not enough. And Titans fans are like, Jared, it's only day 2 of free agency. It'll be fine. You need to chill out. And I just have this question. Why do I have to chill out? I got a couple things at play here. One, this isn't Rand Carthon's first year as general manager. I know you guys like to blame Vrabel for everything bad that happened last year. It's like Aaron Brewer and Andre Dillard were Mike Vrabel's fault, but DeAndre Hopkins was a masterful signing by Rand Carthon. When, again, who did DeAndre know before he showed up? But, again, this is not his first run at it. Last year was a train wreck in free agency. Brewer stinks. Aziz stinks. Brunskill, you heard Trevor right there say, he doesn't even think the right guard's on the roster. And don't even get me started on Dillard. So I've already got that. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. Over the last week, the Houston Texans have signed, and I don't know if the Texans have signed any more people, Ian, since we started the show, but the Houston Texans have signed 14 players. Dalton Schultz, Danico Autry, Tommy Townsend, Noah Brown, Kayimi Fairbairn, Aziz Al-Shaair, Jeff Okudah, Delshon Phillips, Lonnie Johnson Jr., Mike Ford, Foley Fatukasi, Khalil Davis, Chris Boyd, and they've traded, I said signed, but they traded today for Joe Mixon. 14 guys. Why can't you do that? And while, again, I know that not all these guys are superstars, what they're doing is they're kind of adding depth guys. And so if they add 4 guys like Jeff Okudah, and again, 3 corners, right? I think Lonnie Johnson's more of a safety than he is a corner, but he's more of a special teamer. I always liked Lonnie when he was here. But Okudah, Lonnie, and Mike Ford. You know what that does? That keeps Trey Avery off the field. And you would say, well, Jared, Dalton Schultz was already there, and Kayimi Fairbairn was already there, and Noah Brown was already there, so those are just re-signings. Right. But you're not re-signing your guys. You're not re-signing Autry, Aziz, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill. You don't have a kicker. You've signed 5 guys. Morgan Cox, Tony Pollard, Chidobe Awuzie, Lloyd Cushenberry, and Kenneth Murray. So you all are telling me to chill out. You all are telling me that the Titans don't have to jump into free agency, and yet here are the Houston Texans building a quarter of their roster over the last 5 days. And are all these guys superstars? No. But do all these guys play a role? Kicker's pretty important. Punter, pretty important. Gotta have it. They got it. You don't have a kicker. Fatukasi, a defensive lineman. Good player. cut by Jacksonville. They pick him up. You don't have anybody outside of Simmons on the defensive line. So why can the Texans go out and sign all these guys, but you can't? And why should I be patient and not be worried about the Titans when, again, last offseason, they totally flunked in free agency? So don't tell me to chill out. And don't tell me to let Rand do his thing. Because Rand's already failed once. Okay? This is giving him a second chance. And so far, I'm nervous. And I think every Titan fan out there should be nervous. That doesn't mean that I'm going to say, oh, no, this is a failure. And, oh, no, they need to stop everything they're doing. But it is my way of saying I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like that the Jacksonville Jaguars have already gone out and added 2 receivers and might add another one tomorrow. And where are you? And I keep seeing all these inside linebackers like Blake Cashman, who I liked, or Josie Jewell, who I like, or Levante David, who, if you had to, he's a little bit old, but he signs in Tampa. All these inside backers are coming off the board. And you've signed Kenneth Murray, who, again, Pro Football Focus ranked as, where they have him ranked at, the 219th best free agent. 213th, excuse me. What are we doing here? 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your phones, and we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. And right now, FanDuel is putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. So you can bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types like quick bets, live same-game parlays, player props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA and also the NFL, but definitely the NBA. 21 and over in present Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issues, non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
how did you adapt to that and adjust to getting that criticism to make yourself stronger and make you better at your job? And how will you apply that into year 2?
Man, I just ignore the noise. I mean, there's a reason why I'm not on social media, so you don't have to, hear all that. Like, I'm not on social media, but, I have friends and family that are, and they kind of, keep me in the loop. Again, you don't, go out to be in one of these positions and not know that scrutiny is going to come. But to me, the cure-all to it all is winning football games. And that's what my focus is and always will be, is winning football games. And I know that the more we could do that, the better off we'll be. And that's my job. And I know ultimately if I don't do enough of that, then I know this won't be my job. And so I try to stay focused on, the guys in the building hear me talk about it all the time, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is constantly improving this roster and putting us in position to win football games. And so that's always been my focus.
Okay, if you are Rand's friends and family and you are listening to this program, tell him to hurry up in free agency because, again, there are names that are flying off the board, and the Houston Texans have no problem going out and adding all these players. And I love it because yesterday I tweeted out when the Texans kept signing every player, and I said the Texans must use a different cap than everybody else does, or at least than the Titans do. And people said, no, Jared, the Texans have a quarterback on a rookie contract. What contract is your quarterback on? In fact, your quarterback didn't get a $20 million signing bonus. Theirs did. But the Houston Texans are aggressive, and I'll give them credit. And they're really good at adding depth pieces through free agency that I bet you they could probably cut if they get to training camp and those guys aren't any good. So I know people are going to say it's only the beginning. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Not true. It is a sprint at the start of free agency. Then it slows. And then it's a time where guys will take minimum deals or below market or things like that. But you've got the money, so you don't have to win the negotiation all the time. What you need to win are the football games in September, and the way to do that is to have NFL players on your team. Instead, more Nicholas Petit-Frere and Chigakonkwo. Mike says, our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Mike says, this is why I don't ever get my hopes up with the Titans. They take a step forward, but that's all they do. They're like the lady with the sports car that never goes over 50 miles per hour. By the way, I've got a sports car. Well, I've got a sports SUV, I would say, and I don't like to drive it very fast. So I don't want to say I take offense to that, but, I would just say, but I would say this. You can't spend all year from October on saying cap space, cap space, cap space, spend as soon as free agency starts on a running back, and then say we're done. Like, you need to be competing with the Texans and with Jacksonville and with Indy. And Houston, Indy, and Jacksonville are not sitting on their ass. Now, the difference between you and the Colts is the Colts just love signing their own players back. I've never seen anything like it. If the Titans were the Colts, Danico Autry would still be on the Titans. Azeez would still be on the Titans. All those guys would be, and I just don't understand what Indy's obsession with that is. But that's their business, not mine. Travis has been waiting patiently and is up next. Thank you for calling. What's up, Travis?
Hey, Jared. I just want to bring up a quote, and it came from, it was after the year, I think it was the second Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes won. And it was either you or one of your media associates. They said,
Travis, if you're going to roll with a quote, you need to know who said it.
Well, I don't know exactly who said it, so forgive me for that. But I will say, I do remember the quote from Vrabel. He said, the Kansas City Chiefs did not win the Super Bowl in the offseason. And actually they did. They just got beat by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then they revamped their offensive line. And that was the reason they got beat in the first place. So,
okay, Travis, I know what Vrabel said, and I appreciate your call. Vrabel said last year, he said that, whoever wins whoever wins March isn't going to win the Super Bowl. I'm sure people didn't say Kansas City won in March, and here they were. And there is some truth to that. But you're not trying to win the Super Bowl right now. You're trying to make your young quarterback a superstar. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is to support him with good coaching, which I think you might have, and good talent. Supporting him with an offensive line. That's why Noah Brown, for instance, came off the board yesterday, and he must have signed for no money because Noah Brown, all these Texans deals were reported, and Noah Brown's contract was not. And so I am convinced that Noah Brown must have signed for no money. But here's the thing. Noah Brown last year was a deep threat. I want to say it was something, and maybe I have it written down somewhere around here, but he was a deep target. I want to say something like 20 targets over 20 yards and 11 catches. And on those catches, he averaged 25 yards a crack on every single one of those. He's a deep threat guy. He's a bomb the ball out there kind of guy. Will Levis could use that. Not on every snap. But there is a time and a place for a guy who you can bomb the ball down the field to. And Houston gets it. And Houston will throw the ball down the field to him. Who's your guy you're throwing the ball down the field to right now? You don't have one. And so that's what bothers me is I understand, like, you're not going to win the Super Bowl because you signed Curtis Samuel or not. But Will Levis's life is going to be a lot easier if he's got Curtis Samuel in the slot, DeAndre Hopkins outside, and somebody who can run on the other side. Will Levis's life is going to be a lot easier if you get him defensive backs or a defensive line that can get after the quarterback, so he only needs to score 18 points to win instead of needing to score 25 points to win. And the Texans and the Jags were incredibly active in free agency the last 2 years, and that propelled them from worst to first. And that's what you have to do. Jamie from Paris says, last year the excuse was no money. What's the excuse this year? I'm furious so far. Well, see, and that's why I try to tell you guys, oh, my God.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Breaking news. According to Ian Rappaport, 4-time Pro Bowl defensive end Danielle Hunter is signing with the Houston Texans. So I guess the Texans are allowed to spend money in free agency, but God forbid the Titans do that. Let's add Danielle Hunter to the list here. Of all the guys the Texans have signed, that's now 15 guys since free agency started. They have completely revamped their defensive line around Will Anderson Jr., and they still have Malik Collins on their team, who single-handedly came down here with that JV Texan team and just dominated your 11th overall pick. So let's go at Danielle Hunter. That's 15 now for the Houston Texans. Up the Houston Texans. Dalton Schultz, Danico Autry, Joe Mixon, Tommy Townsend, Noah Brown, Kayemi Fairbairn, Azeez Al-Shaair, Jeff Okudah, Delshon Phillips, Lonnie Johnson Jr., Mike Ford, Foley Fatukasi, Khalil Davis, Chris Boyd, and Danielle Hunter. Add Danielle Hunter to the list. It's a good question from Jamie in Paris. What is the excuse now? More of your phones next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's a lot of cap space. I know that's what everyone is talking about, and how much we have, but we have to spend wisely. We don't want to just load up and just go, and spend money. Again, we're trying to build a long-term, consistent thing, and you can't do that spending all $90 million out front. We got to be patient. We got to position ourselves that there are going to be guys that come free in June and July, like when we got D-Hop, that we have to have the space for and be able to afford it. And plus, we have to have money for operating costs moving forward throughout the fall, which I think for most of the season we were in the top 5 and having space available. So we plan to be active, but we're going to be patient and let everything come to us.
You can't spend all the money at one time, Rand Carthon says. Not the Texans. Danielle Hunter, the numbers are out. 2 years, $49 million, 48 of it guaranteed. So the Texans' defensive line is Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Foley Fatukasi, Malik Collins, and I feel like there's one other big old fat boy in there that I am forgetting, who's pretty good. By the way, as far as the Titans are concerned, here's the defensive line. Simmons, T.K. McClendon, Bohanna, and Coburn. Whoever the hell that is. That's your defensive line. Their defensive line just added Danielle Hunter. Oh, God. I love, too, how Rand's talking like he's an accomplished general manager. Hey, you can't spend it all at one time. You can't just load up in free agency. We're trying to build something long-term. And meanwhile, the Texans are like, yeah, screw that. We're going to go into free agency every year, and we're just going to sign a bunch of guys. And that's how you go from worst to first. Not the Titans, though. Josh from White House says, been a Titans fan since they moved here, so I feel qualified to make this statement. The Titans flat out suck. Look, I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to say that they failed. But it's looking like they're going to fail. And I want that to be on the record. That, again, I am not saying that they have failed. So when Paul Kaharski goes on at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and starts being like, he says they all suck and should be fired, I didn't say that. The book is not closed. But it looks like it's going to be a failure when the Houston Texans and Jacksonville Jaguars are loading up and the Titans are sitting here while all the positions they need, all the inside linebackers fly off the board. Jordan Poyer just signed. The safeties are flying off the board. All these players are just flying off the board. One texter says, I'm sad knowing the Texans are going to be so much better than the Titans. You know what's amazing? Is that we used to laugh at the Texans. This time last year, we laughed at them. We laughed at them for 3 years. And they came in here with a JV team with Case Keenum at quarterback and beat the Titans. And now one texter says, thank goodness, I'm glad I'm not the only one concerned. Boy, I tell you, this is, whew. Austin says, operating cost is the most weak-ass excuse I have ever heard in my life. Let me just say this. I think the Texans have operating costs, too. I think Rand Carthon got convinced because the DeAndre Hopkins thing kind of worked last year that he thinks he can do that every year. That he thinks he's going to be able to find game-changing talent in July. That's not how this works. One texter says, when does the cap apply to the Texans? 2 years, $49 million for Danielle Hunter. Good Lord. Ian, do you want to be the one to tell him?
I think you can handle it.
I guess the Texans just use a different cap than the Titans do. Or that or the cap's fake. And I lean more towards that one. One texter says, fire Rand now. You're not there yet. And by the way, I'd like to clear something up for a second because a lot of people are like, you never gave Rand a chance. You wanted to fire him after 1 year. And that is true, but it's not exactly in the context of why I wanted to fire Rand Carthon. The reason why I wanted to fire Rand Carthon and would have fired Rand Carthon at the end of this past year is because the whole collaboration, him and Vrabel working together, that thing was bullcrap from the start. And so I'm just blowing it up and starting over. Because let's say I'm right, and Rand Carthon is a bad general manager, which we'll give him a chance. We're giving him a chance. But let's say I'm right, and he is bad. Well, if you fire him, now who's going to be GM because you just got Brian Callahan, and now you're going to have another shotgun marriage between a coach and a GM. And that never works. Never works. All right, we're out a segment early for Vandy Baseball. Let's hope the Titans make some signings between now and then. Stillman and company. We'll see you tomorrow, too.